Can I trouble you for a few hours? Annie looked toward the man sitting 2 seats away and forced the words past the tightness in her throat. Nathan Cole lifted his head from his phone. His finger stopped just above the button to accept another call. For several seconds, he studied Annie's red-rimmed eyes, then lowered his gaze to the test results clenched tightly in her hand. Annie quickly bowed her head. That brief moment of silence was enough to make her feel as though she had already asked too much of a stranger. "I'm sorry," she murmured. That sounded like a strange question. Rain streamed down the tall windows of Cole Meridian Medical Center, smearing the Chicago skyline into blurred streaks of gray. Along the 6th-floor hallway, nurses hurried past with medication carts, their rubber-soled shoes whispering over the cold, polished stone. Nathan's phone vibrated again. Olivia Grant. The name glowed brightly across the screen. Nathan looked at it, then turned toward Annie. She sat curled inward at the edge of her seat, her knees pressed tightly together, as though taking up even a little more space was something she was not allowed to do. At last, he placed the phone face down on the empty seat between them. It continued to vibrate against the vinyl, producing a series of dry, insistent sounds. A few seconds later, it fell silent. Annie lifted her head slightly. She could not tell whether his silence was a rejection or permission to continue. "Can I trouble you for a few hours?" she asked again, her voice softer this time. "Just a few hours." Nathan glanced at the clock above the nurse's station. "What for?" "I need someone to sit with me." "Just sit with you?" Annie nodded. Nathan looked at the folder resting across her knees. "Are you waiting for a relative?" "No." "Is there anyone you can call?" Annie looked at the old phone resting in her palm. Its screen remained dark. There were still a few names in her contacts, but not one she believed would appear if they learned what had just happened. "No one is coming." Nathan picked up his phone. "The hospital has social workers and patient advocates. I can call the admissions desk and ask them to send someone." "You don't have to do that. It would only take one call." "Really, it's all right." Annie tried to lift the corners of her mouth. The smile broke apart before it had fully formed on her pale face. "You look very busy." "I am." Nathan rose, straightened the front of his jacket, and fastened the button. His movements were quick and decisive. "I'm waiting for test results, too. Once I receive them, I have to leave immediately. The board is waiting downtown. A vote on a major deal is about to begin. And I'm already late." Annie nodded repeatedly, as though she were the one trying to convince him that leaving her behind was entirely reasonable. "Yes, of course." She lowered her head. "You should go." She lifted the report, intending to slide it back into the folder, but her fingers were shaking so badly that she could not find the opening. The edge of the paper scraped against the cover, producing a dry rustling sound in the quiet hallway. Nathan looked down. He caught only a few bold lines near the top of the page. "Acute leukemia. High risk. Immediate hospitalization required." Annie noticed where he was looking. She immediately folded the paper and pressed it tightly against her chest, as though she could hide the terrible news that had just stolen her future. "It's nothing you need to concern yourself with," she said. Nathan remained where he was. "That doesn't look like nothing. They said they still need to run more tests." "Did the doctor explain it clearly?" "They tried." "And you heard all of it alone?" Annie swallowed the ache in her throat. "I came here alone." She looked down at the worn shoes on her feet. "I suppose there's no reason for that to change just because the news suddenly became worse." Nathan's phone vibrated again in his hand. "This time," he answered. "Yes?" Olivia's voice was so clear and urgent that Annie could hear it too. "Nathan, the entire board is waiting. The bank representatives have stood up twice and threatened to leave. I still haven't received my results. Then come as soon as the doctor finishes. The car is waiting downstairs. We're out of time." Nathan looked toward the consultation area across the hallway. "I'll call you back." "Nathan, you can't." He ended the call. Annie hurriedly gathered the folder and her phone against her chest. She rose as though she had somewhere to go, even though all that awaited her was an unfamiliar treatment floor and days she did not know whether she would have the strength to endure. "Go," she said. "Please, I'm sorry I asked something like that." Nathan did not answer. The moment Annie straightened, her legs suddenly weakened. She had to grip the back of the chair to keep herself from falling. Her knuckles turned white from the effort. She quickly turned away, hoping Nathan had not noticed. I'll find someone else, she said. Who? A social worker. You just said you had no one. Annie tightened her grip on the chair. A social worker is still someone. Nathan heard the fragile dignity in her answer. He also heard the fear she was trying to bury beneath every word. What's your name? Annie Brooks. I'm Nathan. I know. Nathan paused. You recognize me? Your photograph is hanging downstairs. Annie glanced toward the hospital logo on the wall. Your name is everywhere. Nathan had passed that portrait hundreds of times. He had never wondered what it looked like through the eyes of patients sitting alone beneath it, staring up at the face of a wealthy man they would probably never meet. He checked his watch again. Annie noticed. She immediately stepped aside to clear a path, even though Nathan had not yet moved. Mr. Cole, you've already given me more time than I should have asked for. You asked for a few hours. I wasn't thinking clearly. What were you thinking? Annie's eyes filled with tears. She blinked repeatedly, trying to keep them from falling in front of him. I thought the doctor would come back and tell me how much time I might have left. Her voice broke. I didn't want to hear it with the seat beside me still empty. Nathan said nothing. The silence stretched between them, but this time Annie no longer had the strength to pretend she was not hurting. She looked down at the test results pressed against her chest. I'm not afraid of needles, she said. I'm not afraid of the smell of antiseptic or the machines that keep making sounds all night. She paused to draw a breath. Her chest rose with difficulty. I'm only afraid that one day my condition will get worse. The door will close after dark, and no one will remember who I was before the name Annie Brooks was replaced by a patient number. Her voice grew quieter. I'm only 18. I haven't done anything yet. I've never even seen the ocean. I've never traveled far outside Chicago. I still have a college application I never got the chance to submit. A tear fell onto the report. I know people will remember what illness I had. I'm just afraid no one will remember how badly I wanted to live. The door to consultation area 614 opened. Dr. Maya Patel stepped into the hallway with a tablet tucked beneath her arm. She stopped when she saw Annie still near the waiting chairs. Annie, you still haven't gone up to the oncology floor? Annie hurriedly wiped away her tears with the back of her hand before turning around. Not yet. Admissions is preparing a bed for you. I thought the patient coordinator had already taken you upstairs. She had another patient who needed help. And your emergency contact? Annie lowered her gaze. I don't have one. Maya went still for a moment. Her expression changed, but her voice remained warm without becoming pitying. She stepped closer and lightly touched Annie's thin arm. You should have told me you were still sitting out here alone. I didn't want to take any more of your time. Annie. Maya bent slightly so she could look directly into her eyes. This morning, you received a diagnosis that could bring any adult to their knees. Needing someone beside you does not mean you are taking their time away. Annie pressed her lips together, but everyone has something more important to do. Not right now. Nathan was still standing nearby, his phone ringing once again in his hand. Maya looked over and recognized him immediately. Mr. Cole, this young woman asked me to give her a few hours, Nathan said. Annie quickly shook her head. He was already about to leave. I shouldn't have tried to keep him here. Maya turned back to her. Why did you ask him? Annie tightened her grip on the paper against her chest. She drew a breath, but her voice remained strained. I only wanted someone sitting there when you explained what happens next. That's all? Annie nodded. I don't need him to pay my hospital bills. I don't need him to find another doctor. She stopped, her lips trembling. I just don't want to pretend to be strong one more time when no one is even there to see it. Maya fell silent. Then she turned to Nathan. Does your meeting have to begin with you physically sitting in the room? Yes. If it begins late, will anyone lose their life? Nathan's jaw tightened. A great deal of money could be lost. Maya nodded. Annie has just been told that treatment must begin immediately. She has no relative waiting downstairs, no friend on the way, and not a single name she could write on the emergency contact form. Annie lowered her head. Doctor, please don't say any more. But Maya continued, her voice calm and firm. She is trying to make herself so small that she will not inconvenience anyone. She is afraid to ask for more than she believes someone like her deserves. Nathan looked at Annie. Her shoulders had folded inward. She held the folder against her chest like a fragile shield, even though the words inside it were the very words that had torn apart every plan she had made at 18. Maya lowered her voice. I am not asking you to cure her. I only want you to understand how much courage this girl had to gather before she could ask a stranger whether he would stay. Nathan did not take his eyes off Annie. Maya continued, if you can give her those few hours, give them freely. Do not make her feel as though she has begged for too much. Too much has already been taken from her this morning. Nathan's phone vibrated again. Graham Voss appeared on the screen. He looked at the name. The meeting was waiting for him. Hundreds of millions of dollars were waiting for his approval. Men in tailored suits were checking their watches and calculating the cost of every minute he remained absent. Then Nathan looked at Annie. The 18-year-old girl standing before him had almost nothing left to lose, yet she was still afraid that she had taken too much from him merely by asking for a few hours. Nathan held down the power button. The screen went black. He placed the phone on the empty seat and sat down again. Annie did not move. What are you doing? Missing a meeting. You said it was very important. It is. Then you have to go. Nathan shook his head. You asked me to stay. I was only panicking, Annie said quickly. I shouldn't make you carry my fear. You aren't making me carry anything. But because of me, you could lose a great deal of money. Nathan looked at her. Money can be earned again. Annie froze. But when someone gathers every bit of courage they have left to ask for help, and you ignore them, that moment does not come back a second time. Annie's lips trembled. I'm not worth missing a meeting like that. Nathan leaned slightly toward her. Don't speak about yourself as though your life has to reach a certain value before you deserve to have someone sit beside you. Annie lowered her face. Tears fell onto the back of her hand. Maya gently squeezed her arm. I'll leave the two of you here for a few minutes. Then I'll come back and explain the treatment plan. After Maya walked away, Annie slowly sat down. Nathan sat beside her. His powered-off phone lay between them, no longer vibrating and urging him to rush somewhere else. I can't promise I'll know what to say, he began. You don't have to say anything. I can't promise the doctors will bring better news. I know, and I can't change these results simply because my name is attached to this building. Annie looked directly at him. Her eyes were still red, but for the first time that morning, they were no longer completely empty. I didn't ask you to change them. Nathan gave a small nod. No. You only asked me not to leave. Annie clasped her hands together. I'm afraid that when the doctor explains the treatment, I won't remember any of it. I'll listen for you. I'm afraid I'll cry. Then cry. I'm afraid they'll ask who is taking me home. Nathan looked at her for a long moment. If you need someone when that time comes, I'll be here. Annie began to cry. Not loudly. Not violently, only quiet tears, sliding down a face that had spent far too long trying not to inconvenience anyone. At that moment, a door across the hallway opened. A nurse stepped out and called, Mr. Cole, Dr. Brenner is ready to discuss your biopsy results. Annie's expression changed. Until then, she had assumed Nathan was waiting for news about someone else. You're waiting for results too? Yes. They could be bad? They could. Annie looked at the phone he had turned off, then toward the entrance where the doctor was waiting. And you still sat here with me? Nathan stood. Perhaps I understand the fear of an answer better than you think. Annie immediately moved aside. Go. Nathan left his phone on the chair. I'll come back. Annie lowered her eyes to the test report in her hands. She did not dare trust a promise offered by a man she had known for less than half an hour. You don't have to promise me. Nathan stopped at the entrance to the consultation area. He turned and looked back at the girl sitting alone on the long bench, small beneath the wide, brightly lit hospital hallway. I know. His voice dropped, and because no one is forcing me to make that promise, this time I intend to keep it. Dr. Brenner closed the consultation area door after Nathan stepped inside. On the monitor behind the desk, a lung scan glowed with a pale blue light. Near the base of Nathan's right lung was a faint spot, small and silent, yet powerful enough to have kept him awake for countless nights. Please sit down, Dr. Brenner said. Nathan did not move. He remained beside the door, one hand resting lightly on the handle. Through the long, narrow glass panel, he could still see Annie sitting in the hallway. The young woman held her medical folder across her knees. His phone had been placed neatly on the chair beside her. Her back was slightly hunched, her shoulders drawn inward, as though taking up less space might keep her from becoming a burden to anyone. Nathan turned back to the doctor. You have the results, don't you? I do. Dr. Brenner removed his glasses and placed them on the desk. The biopsy found no malignant cells. Those were the words Nathan had prayed to hear for days. But now that they had finally been spoken, he did not know how to respond. Dr. Brenner continued, "The abnormality is most likely a benign granuloma, possibly caused by an old infection. We will repeat the scan in 6 months to monitor it. But at present, there is no evidence that you have cancer." Nathan placed one hand on the back of the chair. His fingers tightened around the leather until his knuckles turned white. "You're certain?" "The pathology results are conclusive." The tension in Nathan's shoulders slowly began to dissolve. He had prepared himself for chemotherapy, for surgery, for the possibility of handing control of his company to someone else. One sleepless night, he had even opened his will and spent nearly an hour staring at his signature at the bottom of the page. And now he was being told that he would live. He should have laughed. He should have called someone. He should have felt as though he had just been pulled back from the edge of a cliff. But the relief rose inside him and then stopped. It became trapped somewhere between Dr. Brenner's conclusion and the image of Annie sitting alone outside, holding a very different set of results. One person had just been given back his future. The other might lose everything before her life had truly begun. Dr. Brenner continued explaining the follow-up plan, but Nathan heard only scattered fragments. No treatment, no immediate danger, another scan in 6 months. Those words should have felt weightless. Yet whenever he thought of Annie, they carried a heaviness he could not name. "Mr. Cole," Dr. Brenner reminded him, "this is very good news." Nathan looked back at the scan on the monitor. "Yes," he said, "it is." But his voice did not sound like that of a man who had just escaped a death sentence. When Nathan stepped into the hallway, Annie immediately raised her head. She studied him for a long moment. She did not ask anything at first. She simply searched his face for an answer. "Are you all right?" she finally asked. The biopsy was benign. A small smile appeared on Annie's lips. It was faint, but sincere. "I'm glad." Nathan sat beside her. "You don't have to say that." Annie tilted her head slightly. "Why wouldn't I?" "Because your results weren't good." She lowered her eyes to the folder on her knees. "That doesn't make your results bad." Nathan looked at her. There was no bitterness in her voice, no resentment toward life, not even a question about why he had been spared while she had not. Her kindness hurt him more deeply than anger would have. "No," he said quietly, "it doesn't." Annie picked up his phone and handed it to him. The screen remained dark. "You can turn it back on now." Nathan accepted it without looking at it and slipped the device into his pocket. "It can stay off. You've already missed too many calls because of me." "It wasn't because of you. I made that decision." Annie studied him for several seconds. She seemed about to say something, but changed her mind. Instead, she looked down at her shoes. The toes were worn, and she kept both feet close together beneath the chair. "You must be relieved." "I am." "You don't sound relieved." Nathan clasped his hands in front of him. "A few minutes ago, I thought the doctor might tell me that I didn't have much time left." He paused. "Then I came out here and saw you still holding that report." Annie rubbed her thumb along the edge of the paper, which had been folded and unfolded so many times that the crease had begun to weaken. "You just got your life back," she said. There was no bitterness in her voice. Her calmness was almost painful. It was as though Annie had accepted that good things always found everyone else before they remembered her. Nathan glanced at the old backpack resting by her feet. A white envelope protruded from the front pocket. All 4 corners were worn, and one edge was slightly crumpled, as though it had been taken out and read many times, before being carefully put away again. "What is that?" Annie followed his gaze. She reached down, removed the envelope, and brushed an imaginary speck of dust from its surface. A college letter. After a moment of hesitation, she handed it to Nathan. The Howard University seal appeared at the top. Nathan read the opening lines. His eyes paused on the name Annie Carter and then on the offer of admission. He looked at her. "You were accepted. With a partial scholarship. That is something to be very proud of." Annie gently traced the fold across her knee. "It used to be." Nathan frowned. "Why are you talking as though it's already over?" Annie took back the letter. She folded it along the old creases with such care that it seemed she was afraid of hurting a dream. "Classes begin next fall," she said. "Dr. Patel told me treatment could take several months, maybe longer. You still don't know exactly what will happen." Annie looked at him. "Neither did you." Nathan did not argue. Only minutes earlier, he had been standing on the other side of a closed door, waiting for a stranger to decide his future with a few short sentences. What were you planning to study? Nursing. Nathan looked up at the oncology sign hanging above the hallway. After today, that seems like a difficult choice. I made the choice before today. Why nursing? Annie placed the letter back inside her backpack. She smoothed the edge of the envelope before closing the zipper, as though she were protecting the last precious thing she had, because patients remember who stayed with them. Nathan waited. Annie looked down at her hands. My mother was a nurse. I don't remember much about where she worked. I was very young. She pressed her lips together, trying to keep her voice steady. But I remember that whenever we went shopping, someone would sometimes stop us in the middle of an aisle. They would tell her that she had sat beside them after surgery. One person said she had brought them a blanket when they were so frightened they couldn't stop shaking. Some people would simply hug her and cry. A fragile smile passed over Annie's lips. My mother couldn't cure everyone, but she made them feel as though they hadn't been abandoned. Her hands began to tremble. Annie quickly pressed them together, as though she did not want Nathan to notice. I wanted to do that for someone too. Nathan looked at the young woman before him. She was carrying an illness that might take away months, years, or countless dreams. Yet what frightened her most was not that no one had cared for her. It was that she might never have the chance to care for someone else. Do you have family nearby? Nathan asked. Annie shook her head. Your father? I don't know him. The answer was brief. It was flat and quiet, like a door that had been closed for far too long. Other relatives? There's no one I can call for something like this. Nathan looked at the medical folder on her knees. On the patient information form, the emergency contact line remained blank. It was only a small empty space on a piece of paper, yet it revealed Annie's entire life more clearly than any story could have. If she collapsed, the hospital would not know whom to call. If she woke after surgery, no name had been written down for someone who might be waiting outside. If the doctor had terrible news, Annie would be the only one forced to hear it. What about a teacher or friends from school? Nathan asked. Annie was silent for a while. My guidance counselor would come if I asked her. Then call her. Annie quickly shook her head. She would leave work, drive across the city, and sit here all day. Then she would think about me every night afterward. She has a family, other students, and too many responsibilities already. She sounds like someone worth calling. She sounds like someone who already carries too much. Nathan studied Annie's profile. Do you think needing someone is selfish? Annie did not answer immediately. Beyond the windows, raindrops streamed down the glass, leaving blurred trails against the gray sky. At last, she spoke. I think people eventually get tired. Nathan turned fully toward her. There was no self-pity in Annie's voice, only a fear learned through experience. Annie looked toward the doors of the consultation area. Is anyone waiting for your results? My assistant knows I'm here. That isn't what I asked. Nathan was silent. No. A wife? No. Family? No one nearby. Annie turned toward him. Her expression softened, as though she had briefly forgotten her own fear after recognizing the loneliness in someone else. Then you were alone too. Nathan almost corrected her. He had a driver waiting in the parking garage, lawyers who would answer his calls at any hour, an assistant who knew every minute of his schedule, an entire board of directors waiting for him to make a decision involving billions of dollars. Nathan had never lacked people around him. But that morning, while waiting for his biopsy results, no one had known how badly his hands were trembling. No one knew he had watched sick patients pass through the hallway and wondered whether he was about to become one of them. No one knew how terrified he had been of dying while the world remembered only the companies bearing his name. Yes, Nathan said. I was alone too. They sat beside each other in silence. Rain tapped against the windows in a steady, mournful rhythm. They were two people standing at opposite ends of life. One could buy almost anything, yet had no one to call when he was afraid. The other had nothing but a worn college letter, yet still worried that asking someone to remain beside her would make her a burden. After a while, Annie asked softly, What kind of meeting are you missing? A merger vote. Is it important? To several hundred people, very. Is it a large deal? Nathan hesitated before answering. Yes. Annie blinked. For the first time that morning, genuine surprise appeared on her face. Millions of dollars? Far more than that. She looked at him and then at the pocket holding his phone. And you turned it off just because I asked you to stay? I still haven't decided whether that was a responsible choice. It wasn't. Nathan turned toward her. Annie lowered her head, and her voice became very small. But thank you. A faint vibration came from Nathan's pocket. Perhaps it was the last stored alert before the phone became completely still. Neither of them reached for it. Annie rested her head against the wall. Her face was pale with exhaustion. Faint shadows lay beneath her eyes, evidence of long nights spent studying, working, and trying to convince herself that her symptoms were only the result of fatigue. "You should leave after Dr. Patel comes back," she said. "You asked me to stay for a few hours. I didn't know you were waiting for your own results." Annie closed her eyes for a moment. "I thought you were just a busy man." "I am a busy man." She opened her eyes and stared straight ahead. "Being busy isn't the same as being needed." Nathan did not answer. Hundreds of people needed Nathan's signature. They needed his money, his influence, his connections, and his decisions. But how many people truly needed him? "What are you most afraid the doctor will say?" Nathan asked. Annie stared at the closed doors across the hallway. Her hands tightened together again. "That I waited too long." "Did you?" "I went to the clinic twice." Her voice grew quieter. "They told me I was exhausted from working and studying at the same time. One doctor said stress could cause most of the symptoms. He told me to sleep more, eat better, and stop worrying." "What happened the second time?" "They said almost the same thing." Annie pulled down her sleeve, but she was unable to hide all the fading bruises around her wrist. "I wanted to believe them." "Why?" She looked at the purple marks on her skin. "Because believing them was cheaper." If Annie's story touched your heart, please like this video, tell us in the comments where you are watching from, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories about hope, kindness, and second chances. Nathan became still. That one sentence revealed everything Annie had not said. She had accepted a careless diagnosis not because it was convincing. She had accepted it because she could not afford to question it. She could not afford more tests. She could not afford to miss work. She had no family to drive her to appointments. No one had stood beside her and told her that her pain deserved to be taken seriously. Nathan's gaze dropped to the bottom of the medical report. The Cole Meridian logo was printed clearly along the edge of the page. His company's name, the healthcare system he owned, the same clinics that appeared in annual reports beside impressive figures about efficiency, speed, and the number of patients served. "Were those clinics part of our system?" Nathan asked. Annie did not look at him. "Both of them were." Her answer fell softly. But inside Nathan, it sounded like something breaking. Before he could ask another question, Dr. Patel appeared at the far end of the hallway. She carried a thicker medical file than before. A patient coordinator walked beside her, holding a stack of admission forms. The moment Annie saw the amount of paperwork in their hands, she understood that the next conversation would not be brief. Her face turned white. One hand immediately slipped into the front pocket of her backpack and closed around the Howard acceptance letter, like a frightened child clinging to the last object that could remind her she had once possessed a future. "Annie." Dr. Patel pulled a chair closer. Her voice was gentle, but the caution behind every word caused Annie's lips to tremble. "We're ready to discuss the next steps." Annie did not respond. She remained motionless, her hand still gripping the letter inside her backpack. Her fingertips pressed so deeply into the envelope that the thin paper began to wrinkle. Nathan noticed. He moved his chair closer, not so close that she would feel trapped, only close enough for Annie to know that when the next words were spoken, she would not have to endure them alone. Dr. Patel looked at Nathan. "Will you be staying?" Nathan did not answer without permission. He turned toward Annie. The decision had to be hers. Annie looked at him. There was hesitation in her eyes, the uncertainty of someone who had carried every burden alone for so long that she no longer knew how to accept help. She was afraid of needing him. Afraid that his kindness would eventually run out. Afraid that one small nod might turn her into a burden for the man who had just been given his life back. But when Dr. Patel opened the thick file across her knees, Annie suddenly looked heartbreakingly small. She was only a young woman preparing to begin college. She should have been worrying about choosing classes, finding a dormitory, and deciding which books to bring. She should not have been sitting beneath cold white hospital lights, clutching an acceptance letter while waiting to hear how much of her youth and illness might take away. At last, Annie gave a faint nod. "Yes," she said. Her voice trembled. "He'll stay." Nathan placed both hands on his knees and turned toward the doctor. The phone in his pocket remained silent. A multi-billion-dollar merger vote was still unfolding somewhere beyond the hospital walls. But at that moment, the most important thing in Nathan's life was no longer a business deal, a board of directors, or numbers powerful enough to shake the market. It was the young woman sitting beside him, one hand gripping her dream of becoming a nurse, the other trying desperately to stop itself from trembling. Dr. Patel placed the thicker folder on her lap and waited until the patient coordinator had taken the chair beside her. Annie kept both hands inside the front pocket of her sweatshirt. Nathan could see the fabric moving around her fingers. "I'm going to explain this in plain language," Maya said. "Stop me whenever something is unclear." Annie nodded. "The blood tests show acute lymphoblastic leukemia. It means certain immature blood cells are multiplying too quickly and preventing your body from producing healthy cells. That explains the exhaustion, bruising, and nosebleeds you've had." "Is it advanced?" "We need a bone marrow biopsy and genetic testing before I can answer that properly. What I can tell you is that we should admit you today and begin treatment soon." Annie looked toward the elevator. "Today?" "Yes. I didn't bring anything. We can help with clothing and basic supplies. I'm scheduled at the diner tonight." Maya's expression remained calm. "You won't be working tonight." Annie lowered her eyes. "If I miss another shift, Leon may replace me." Nathan spoke before Maya could answer. "Call him." Annie turned toward him. "What?" "Tell him you're being admitted." "I don't want to tell everyone yet." "Then say you have a medical emergency." "And when he asks when I'm coming back?" Nathan had no answer. Maya stepped in. "You don't need to solve the next 6 months this morning. Today, we need to get you upstairs, complete the tests, and make sure you're stable." The patient coordinator opened a clipboard. "I'll need to confirm some information before we arrange the room." "Full name?" "Annie Denise Brooks." "Current address?" Annie gave the address of the rented room above a check-cashing store on the south side. She spoke quietly when asked about insurance. Her transitional Medicaid coverage was still active, but she had recently moved, and several notices had gone to her former foster placement. The coordinator entered the information into her tablet. Her brow tightened. "There's a verification hold on the account." "What does that mean?" Annie asked. "It may only be an address issue. We'll contact the state office." "Can I still be admitted?" "Yes. Necessary hospital care won't be delayed. Some consultations and later services may need authorization." Annie glanced at Nathan. "How much is this going to cost?" The coordinator paused. "It's too early to estimate." "Thousands?" No one answered. "More than thousands?" Maya closed the folder. "Annie, the financial office can explain the billing. Right now, I need you to focus on the medical plan." "That's easy to say when the bills don't have your name on them." Her voice remained polite, but the restraint made Nathan uneasy. The coordinator turned the tablet slightly. A yellow banner had appeared beside Annie's account. "Financial review required." Underneath it sat the blue Cole Meridian logo. Nathan pointed at the screen. "Why is that warning attached to her medical record?" "It's an administrative flag, Mr. Cole. She needs treatment. Remove it." "I don't have the authority to delete it." "Then find the person who does." Annie closed her folder. "Please don't." Nathan looked at her. "This shouldn't be part of the conversation, but it is. I'll cover whatever the insurance doesn't." Her face changed at once. "No, you don't know what the cost will be. Neither do you. The amount isn't the issue. It is for me. You won't owe me anything." Annie's mouth tightened. People say that when they're deciding for someone else. Nathan glanced at Maya, but the doctor offered him no rescue. Annie continued. "I know how these stories work. A rich man helps someone with no family. There's a photograph, a donation announcement, maybe a speech about giving people hope. Then everyone goes home feeling good except the person whose worst day became public. There will be no photograph. You can promise that?" "Yes." "No reporters?" "Yes." "No speech with my name in it?" "Yes." She watched him, measuring whether promises came easily to him. Maya addressed Nathan. "Payment does not give anyone authority over Annie's care or her privacy." "I understand." "Do you?" Nathan looked toward Annie. "She decides. She also decides who remains in the room, which specialists review her case, and whether she accepts a treatment after we explain the risks and benefits." Annie's shoulders relaxed by a small degree. Nathan said, "I'm offering resources, nothing else." "Then let her choose whether to accept them," Maya replied. Nathan waited. Annie rubbed her thumb across the edge of the Howard envelope inside her backpack. "I'll accept help with the hospital bills if the insurance doesn't cover them. Nathan nodded. But my name stays out of the news. It will. And if a doctor tells you something, you don't keep it from me because you think I can't handle it. That won't happen. Maya gave him a direct look. It had better not. The coordinator resumed the admission questions. When she reached the emergency contact section, Annie became still. Who should we call if we can't reach you directly? No one. There must be someone. A relative? Friend? Counselor? Employer? Annie shook her head. What about Mrs. Harper? Nathan asked. She's at school. That wasn't the question. Annie looked toward the rain-covered window. She has a husband recovering from surgery. I'm not adding this to her life before I know what this is going to become. The coordinator left the line blank. Nathan saw Annie notice it. The empty box seemed to trouble her more than the questions about insurance. His phone was still on the chair. He picked it up and powered it on. Messages filled the screen before he could enter the passcode. Olivia had called 11 times. Graham had called 6. The final message read, "Vote begins in 9 minutes. Car waiting." Nathan dialed Olivia. She answered before the first ring finished. "Where are you?" "At the hospital." "We know that." "Are you coming?" "No." There was a pause. "The board is prepared to vote without you." "They won't." "Nathan, representatives have crossed 3 time zones for this meeting. Cancel it." The silence lasted longer this time. "Cancel the merger vote? Reschedule the board. Send the bank teams home. Do you understand what this delay could cost?" Nathan looked at the yellow financial warning beside Annie's name. "I'm beginning to." Graham's voice came onto the line. "Nathan, whatever is happening there can be handled by hospital staff." Nathan watched Annie sign the admission form. Her hand shook, but she did not stop writing. "No," he said. "It can't. $5.8 billion depends on your presence. A patient's care should not depend on whether she can afford to be noticed. This is not the time for philosophy." Nathan ended the call. Annie looked at him. "Did you really cancel it?" "Yes." "Because of me?" "Because I saw something in my own hospital that I should have noticed long before today." The coordinator rose and told Annie that a room was ready upstairs. A wheelchair would arrive in a few minutes. Annie gathered her folder and backpack. "You can leave now. You've already done more than I asked." Nathan slipped his phone into his pocket. "I said I would give you a few hours." "You did." He looked at the unsigned emergency contact line. "We're not finished yet." Maya watched him carefully. "Mr. Cole, money may bring more specialists into the room. It may provide more choices. It cannot promise her a cure." Nathan met the doctor's eyes. "I know." "No," Maya said. "You know the sentence. The rest takes longer." A transport attendant arrived with the wheelchair. Annie hesitated before sitting, as though doing so made the diagnosis more real. Nathan picked up her backpack before she could reach for it. "I can carry that," she said. "I know." She allowed him to keep it. As they moved toward the elevator, Annie held the Howard letter against her chest. Nathan walked beside her while Maya followed with the medical folder. The elevator doors opened. For the first time that morning, Annie entered the next part of her life with someone at her side. The elevator carried them to the hematology-oncology floor. Annie sat with her hands folded over the test report, while Nathan held her backpack by one strap. Neither spoke. The numbers above the door changed slowly, and each soft chime seemed to move her farther from the morning she had expected to have. A nurse named Caroline met them at the station. She was in her 50s, with silver beginning to show at her temples and a calm voice that did not ask Annie to pretend she was fine. "Miss Brooks? Annie is okay. Then Caroline is okay for me." She checked the identification band against the tablet in her hand. "We have a room ready. Before we begin, do you need water, food, or a few minutes alone?" Annie glanced at Nathan. "Food, maybe. When did you last eat?" "Yesterday afternoon." Caroline gave Nathan a brief look, not accusing him, only confirming that he had heard the answer. "What sounds good?" she asked. Annie considered the question as if it required more strength than she had left. "Grilled cheese, tomato soup. We can do that." Her room contained a narrow bed, a visitor chair, a small table, and a window facing a strip of gray lake beyond the buildings. A folded hospital gown rested near the pillow. Annie remained near the door. "Do I have to change now?" "Not yet," Caroline said. "You can keep your clothes on until transport comes for the first test." Nathan placed the backpack on the chair. Annie reached for it immediately. "Keep it close, please." He moved it to the bed instead. Caroline secured the identification band around Annie's wrist, then explained the routines of the floor. Hand washing, temperature checks, restricted visitors if her immune system weakened, and the button beside the bed if she needed help. Annie looked at the button. What counts as needing help? Pain, nausea, dizziness, fear, or anything you don't understand. Fear counts? It does in this room. Annie gave a small nod. Dr. Patel entered carrying the medical folder. She pulled the visitor chair closer but waited for Annie to sit first. "We need to talk about the tests we're doing today," Maya said. "There will be a bone marrow biopsy, additional blood work, and imaging before treatment begins." "How soon does treatment begin?" "If the results confirm what we expect, likely within the next day or two." Annie pressed one palm against the mattress. "Will the biopsy hurt?" "You'll receive medication to numb the area and something to help you relax. You may still feel pressure and discomfort. I won't tell you it will be pleasant." "Thank you." Nathan looked at Maya. "Can she be sedated completely?" "If medically appropriate, we'll discuss the options with Annie." "With her," Annie repeated. Maya nodded. Every time, they continued through the possible effects of treatment. Fatigue, nausea, infection risk, bruising, hair loss, the possibility of a central line, the need for genetic testing before the team could determine whether a stem cell transplant might become necessary. Annie listened without interrupting until Maya mentioned that school plans might need to change. "I graduate in June. We'll work with your school. I'm not asking whether someone can send assignments here. I'm asking if I'll be there." Maya did not answer too quickly. "I don't know yet." Annie looked down at the Howard envelope resting beside her. Nathan wanted to say she would graduate. He could feel the promise forming before he stopped himself. Maya noticed. "Hope is useful," she said, "but it has to stand beside the truth." Nathan folded his hands. "What can I do right now?" "Let Annie decide what she needs." The food arrived on a tray. The grilled cheese had been cut diagonally, and the soup came in a white bowl with a packet of crackers. Annie lifted the spoon but did not eat. "My mother used to make this when it rained." Caroline adjusted the tray. "Then take your time." Nathan pulled out the visitor chair and sat near the window. He checked his phone once, the screen filled with missed calls, emails, and meeting alerts. He silenced it without opening any of them. Annie noticed. "They're still calling. They'll continue. You don't have to ignore everyone." "I'm not ignoring everyone. You know what I mean." Nathan looked at the soup, then at her. "Today, I'm learning that urgency depends on where a person is sitting." A corner of Annie's mouth moved. "That sounded like something you'd say in a speech." "It did. Don't use it." "I won't." She took one spoonful of soup. Olivia arrived 20 minutes later carrying Nathan's laptop, a garment bag, and a thick folder. Her expression shifted when she saw Annie in the bed. "Nathan, may I speak with you outside?" Annie looked toward the door. "You can talk here." Olivia hesitated. Nathan said, "Nothing about the company needs to be hidden from her unless it concerns another patient." Olivia set the folder on the windowsill. The board moved the vote to next Thursday. 2 banks are threatening to reconsider their terms. Graham wants you at headquarters this afternoon. "I'm not going. You've canceled the morning. No one expects you to remain here all day." Nathan looked at Annie. "I said I would." Olivia lowered her voice. "You met her today. That doesn't change what I said." Annie placed the spoon down. "You can go. I'm admitted now. Dr. Patel is here. Caroline is here." Nathan did not answer immediately. Olivia studied him, then Annie. "The communications office is asking why you missed the vote. Graham suggested saying you had a private medical appointment." "That's true. He also wants to know whether hospital funds are being used outside standard authorization." Nathan's expression hardened. "Tell him my personal office will cover anything her insurance does not." Annie spoke before Olivia could respond. "Only after I see the bills." Nathan turned toward her. "I agreed to help," Annie said. "I didn't agree to stop asking questions." "Fair enough." Olivia gathered the corporate folder. "Graham will not like this." "He doesn't need to." After Olivia left, Maya returned with a consent form for the biopsy. Annie read every line. At the bottom was a section asking for an emergency contact. Space remained empty. Nathan saw it but said nothing until Annie pushed the clipboard away. "Would you like to list Mrs. Harper?" he asked. "Not yet." "Then list me." Annie looked at him. "You don't know me. I know where you are, what the doctors are treating, and what you asked me to do. That isn't the same as family." "No." "Then why?" Nathan answered without reaching for a better sentence. "Because the line should not stay empty if you don't want it to." Annie held the pen for several seconds, then wrote his name and number. A transport aide arrived to take her to the procedure room. Annie moved from the bed to the wheelchair and pulled the hospital blanket over her knees. Before the aide turned toward the door, she looked at Nathan. "You'll be here when I come back?" "Yes. You might be waiting a long time." Nathan removed his suit jacket, folded it over the visitor chair, and sat down. "I have nowhere more important to be." Annie watched him until the wheelchair entered the hallway. Then she faced forward, keeping the Howard letter against her chest as the door closed behind her. Annie returned nearly 2 hours later. Her face had lost what little color remained that morning, and one hand gripped the edge of the blanket across her knees. Nathan rose as the transport aide guided the wheelchair into the room. "You stayed," Annie said. "I told you I would. The procedure took longer than they said. So did my meeting." Her eyes moved to the empty tray. "Did you eat my grilled cheese?" "No." "You could have." "I wasn't hungry. That sandwich died for nothing." The joke was weak, but Nathan understood what it cost her to make it. He moved the tray aside as Caroline helped Annie into bed. Annie winced when she shifted her weight. "Pain?" Caroline asked. "A little. Give me a number." 3. Caroline waited. "Fine. 6. That answer, I believe." She checked Annie's blood pressure and temperature, then adjusted the blanket. "You don't earn anything by making the number smaller." Annie closed her eyes. "I'm still learning the rules. The first rule is that we can't help with what you hide." Nathan looked away. The sentence seemed meant for more than the person in the bed. Dr. Patel arrived before noon with the preliminary findings. The additional tests supported the original diagnosis. Treatment needed to begin the next morning, though several genetic results would take longer. Maya pulled a chair close to the bed. "The first phase is called induction. The goal is to reduce the leukemia cells until we can no longer detect them with standard testing." "How long does that take?" Annie asked. "Usually several weeks. You'll remain in the hospital while we monitor your blood counts and watch for side effects. And after that, we decide the next phase based on how your body responds." Nathan opened his laptop. "I want her records sent to Boston, New York, Houston, and Seattle." Annie turned toward him. "Why?" "For outside review." "Did Dr. Patel ask for that?" "No." "Then why are you doing it?" "Because there are specialists who may see something others miss." Maya folded her arms. "A second opinion can help. 10 opinions can become a way to postpone the first decision." "I'm not postponing anything. You're trying to build a room full of people important enough to make uncertainty disappear." Nathan closed the laptop halfway. "Would you refuse expert input?" "No. I would refuse to let it delay treatment or make Annie feel that her care is being decided in offices she cannot enter." Annie looked between them. "Can we ask 2 other doctors?" Nathan started to answer, then stopped. Maya nodded. 2 is reasonable." "Then 2, Annie said. Nathan shut the laptop. 2. Caroline entered with medication information and a schedule for the next day. Before the first infusion, Annie would need a central line placed. The nurses would check every label with her and monitor her closely. Annie listened until Caroline mentioned nausea. "How bad?" "It varies. We'll give you medicine before treatment and adjust it if you need more." "What if I can't eat?" "We'll work around it." "What if I'm sick all night?" "Then you call me." Annie glanced at the button beside the bed. "Even if you're busy?" "Especially then." Nathan's phone lit up on the windowsill. He had powered it on so Olivia could reach him, but he had muted the sound. Messages continued appearing across the screen. Annie noticed them. "You can answer." "I'll answer later." "You keep saying that. Does it bother you?" "It makes me think everyone at your company is going to hate me. They don't know your name." "Someone will." Nathan looked at the hospital door. "They won't hear it from me." A knock came before Annie could respond. Mrs. Evelyn Harper entered carrying a canvas tote bag and a folded quilt. Her gray hair was pinned behind her ears, and rain darkened the shoulders of her coat. Annie's face changed. "Who called you?" "The attendance office told me you missed school. Leon told them you missed work." After that, Finding you wasn't difficult. I was going to call. When? When I knew more. Mrs. Harper placed the tote on the bed. You have leukemia, Annie. How much more did you need to know before deciding you were allowed to call me? Annie lowered her eyes. Your husband is still recovering. He is home, complaining about daytime television and refusing to use the cane his doctor gave him. He told me to come. Mrs. Harper unfolded the quilt. Each square used a different fabric: flowers, blue checks, small stars, and pieces cut from old church event shirts. The women at New Hope made this, she said. They had most of it finished for the shelter fundraiser. They decided you needed it first. I can't take their fundraiser quilt. You can return it when you are finished with it. Annie touched one of the squares. What if that takes a long time? Then it takes a long time. Mrs. Harper finally turned to Nathan. Mr. Cole, you know who I am. Your photograph is downstairs, and Annie texted me 6 words before turning off her phone. Annie frowned. What 6 words? At Cole Meridian. Don't panic. Sorry. That's only 5. I counted the period. Nathan almost smiled. Mrs. Harper studied the visitor chair, his folded jacket, and the untouched corporate folder near the window. How long have you been here? Since this morning. And how long are you staying? Nathan looked at Annie. As long as she wants me here. Mrs. Harper's tone remained polite. Annie has spent years trying to make herself easy to help. She says thank you before anyone has done anything and apologizes before asking for what she needs. I've noticed. Then don't make her perform gratitude for you. Annie covered her face with one hand. Mrs. Harper. It needed saying. Nathan accepted the correction. She doesn't owe me anything. Good. Remember that when helping becomes inconvenient. Mrs. Harper helped Annie place the quilt over the hospital blanket. Then she removed a stack of schoolwork, a clean sweatshirt, a phone charger, and a glass jar filled with folded notes. Annie picked up the jar. What is this? Messages from your class. They already know? They know you're in the hospital, nothing else. Annie opened one note. You still owe me $20 from prom tickets. Get well soon. She laughed once, then pressed her lips together as tears gathered. Mrs. Harper sat on the edge of the visitor chair. You don't have to read them all today. I'm okay. No, you aren't. Annie looked down at the note. Mrs. Harper continued. And you don't need to be okay for us to remain. That evening, after Mrs. Harper left, Caroline began preparing Annie for the night. She explained that the first days would involve frequent checks, more blood draws, and little uninterrupted sleep. Nathan tried to organize the medication schedule on his phone. Caroline glanced at the screen. You don't need to manage the nurses. I'm keeping track. We are too. What should I do then? Caroline handed him a small plastic basin and placed a cool cloth on the bedside table. If she feels sick, give her this. If she feels warm, call us. If she wants silence, let the room stay quiet. Nathan looked at the basin in his hands. That's all? For tonight, near midnight. Annie woke with nausea. Nathan pressed the call button 3 times. Caroline entered and looked at him. One press reaches us. I wasn't sure it worked. It worked the first time. While Caroline gave Annie medication, Nathan held the basin and kept the cool cloth against the back of her neck. There was nothing impressive about the task. No one praised him. No camera recorded it. He could not make the discomfort end sooner. When Annie settled, she opened her eyes. You can go home, she whispered. Nathan remained in the chair. Do you want me to? She considered the question, then shook her head. Nathan placed his silent phone in the drawer beside her bed. All right, he said. Then I'm staying. The first chemotherapy infusion began the next morning. Caroline checked Annie's name and date of birth, then read each medication label aloud before connecting the line to the port beneath her collarbone. Annie watched every movement. Is it supposed to feel cold? She asked. A little, Caroline said. Tell me if it burns or hurts. Nathan stood near the window with his hands in his pockets. He had spent part of the night reading about leukemia treatment until Maya took the medical articles from him and closed his laptop. You are not helping her by trying to become a physician before breakfast, she had said. Now he watched the clear medication move through the tubing and tried not to ask how quickly it would work. Annie noticed his silence. You look more worried than I do. I doubt that. You're doing a poor job of hiding it. I usually have an office between me and bad news. Does the office help? No. Then maybe stop paying so much rent for it. Nathan smiled despite himself. The first hours passed without incident. By afternoon, nausea settled over Annie in waves. She tried to hide it until Caroline found her gripping the edge of the mattress. "You have medicine available," Caroline said. "I already took enough." "That is not how nausea medication works. I don't want to complain every 5 minutes. Calling for help is not complaining." Annie glanced toward Nathan. He held up one hand. "I've already been corrected about that." Caroline gave Annie another dose and lowered the blinds. Nathan remained in the visitor chair while she slept. Over the next several days, the room developed its own routine. Blood was drawn before sunrise. Breakfast arrived whether Annie wanted it or not. Maya came during morning rounds. Mrs. Harper visited after school with assignments Annie rarely opened. Nathan left only to shower, change clothes, and attend brief calls in an empty conference room downstairs. Each time he returned, Annie looked toward the clock before greeting him. On the 5th morning, she said, "You don't have to prove anything." Nathan set a cup of tea on her table. "I came because I said I would." "That sounds like proving something. Then judge me after I stop coming." Annie pulled the church quilt higher. That was almost a good answer. A week later, she found the first dark strands on her pillow. She gathered them quickly and wrapped them inside a tissue before Nathan entered. The next morning there were more. By the 3rd day, hair came loose when she adjusted her ponytail. Mrs. Harper brought a soft brush and left it on the table without comment. Annie did not touch it. That evening, Nathan returned with containers from the diner where she worked. Leon had sent chicken soup, mashed potatoes, cornbread, and peach cobbler, with a note written across the receipt. "Your shifts are safe. Stop worrying about my schedule." The room was empty. Nathan heard a low mechanical hum behind the bathroom door. "Annie? I'm Fina." He tried the handle. It was locked. "What are you doing?" "Nothing." The hum stopped. A pair of scissors clicked against the sink. Nathan placed the food on the table. "Open the door." "No." "Do you need Caroline?" "No." "Then tell me what you need." Silence followed. Nathan sat on the floor outside the bathroom. His suit trousers pressed against the tile, but he did not move. After a minute, Annie said, "You can't fix this." "I know. You keep saying that." "I'm trying to remember it." The lock turned. Annie stood inside wearing the yellow hospital gown and holding a pair of clippers. Her hair was uneven. One side cut close while the other still reached her jaw. Dark curls covered the white floor. She avoided his eyes. "I thought it would be easier if I did it before it all fell out." Nathan remained near the doorway. "Do you want help?" "I don't want you to tell me I still look beautiful." "I wasn't going to." She gave him a tired look. "Good. I was going to ask whether you want the back even." Annie touched the unfinished section. "I can't see it." Nathan held out his hand. She hesitated, then gave him the clippers. He had never used them before. His first pass left a narrow strip longer than the rest. "You missed a spot," Annie said. "I'm aware. You weren't until I told you." Nathan adjusted the angle. "You could be less critical. You could be better at this." Her voice cracked on the final word. Nathan stopped. Annie covered her face with both hands. "I don't want to do this." He placed the clippers on the sink. "You don't have to act strong for me." "I'm not acting. You locked the door so no one would see you cry." She lowered her hands. "People stay longer when you make things easy for them." Nathan picked up the clippers again, then let them leave. "What?" "Anyone who needs you to make illness convenient was not planning to stay." Annie looked at the hair around her feet. "My mother would know what to say." "Probably. Mrs. Harper would know too." "Most likely. And you don't." "No." A faint laugh escaped her before turning into a sob. Nathan finished cutting her hair while she cried without apologizing. When he was done, he swept the curls into a small pile with a hospital towel. Annie touched the shape of her head. "I look sick now." "You were sick yesterday." It wasn't the first thing people saw. Nathan met her eyes in the mirror. Then the wrong people were looking. The next afternoon, Mrs. Harper arrived carrying a yellow knit cap made by a woman from New Hope Church. Annie held it but did not put it on. "I don't want to become someone's charity project." Mrs. Harper removed her coat. "A gift offered without a demand is not pity." "How do I know there isn't a demand?" "You wear it when you're cold. You take it off when you aren't. That is the entire agreement." Annie pulled the cap over her head. Nathan looked toward the door when Olivia entered holding a laptop and a thin folder. She waited until Annie was resting before asking him to step into the hallway. "I found something in her clinic records," Olivia said. Nathan lowered his voice. "What?" She went to 2 Cole Meridian locations before this diagnosis. The second physician ordered additional blood work, but the appointment was delayed during insurance verification. "How long?" "Nearly 3 months. Nathan's face tightened. "Why?" Olivia opened the folder. Her account was marked as a low reimbursement priority. Someone later changed the record to say she failed to return. "Did she?" "No. Transportation records show she checked in that morning." Nathan looked through the room window. Annie was adjusting the yellow cap while Mrs. Harper folded the quilt at the foot of the bed. "Who changed the record?" "I don't know yet." "Find out." Olivia closed the folder. "Graham's office has already asked why I accessed it." Nathan looked at her. "What did you tell them?" "That I made a mistake." "And did you?" Olivia glanced toward Annie. "No," she said. "I don't think I did." Nathan looked through the glass at Annie adjusting the yellow cap while Mrs. Harper folded the quilt at the foot of the bed. "Keep a copy of everything," he told Olivia. "Do not use the company's legal department. Graham will notice." "He already has." Olivia held the folder closer. "If the record was changed deliberately, this may not be limited to Annie. Then find out how far it goes. What do I tell Graham when he asks again?" Nathan looked at her. "Tell him you're doing your job." Olivia left through the service elevator. Nathan returned to Annie's room, but he did not mention the altered record. He wanted facts before giving her another reason to feel betrayed by people who had already failed her. During the following week, Annie's blood counts improved enough for Maya to allow short walks outside her room. Annie refused the wheelchair at first, then made it halfway down the hallway before her knees weakened. "I can walk," she said when Nathan brought the chair closer. "I can see that." "Then move it." "You walked 20 feet. 23. Nathan checked the floor tiles. "You counted?" "I had time." Maya stepped out of the nurse's station. "The rooftop garden is farther than 23 feet. Annie looked toward the elevators. "I still want to go." "Then use the chair before your body makes the decision for you." Annie lowered herself into it with visible reluctance. Nathan took the handles. "You look pleased," she said. "I'm pleased Dr. Patel agreed with me." She agreed with gravity. The rooftop garden was nearly empty. Late-season flowers filled raised beds along the walls, and the damp air carried the smell of soil. Chicago spread beyond the glass barrier, under an orange evening sky. Nathan parked the chair near a wooden bench. Annie adjusted the yellow cap. "You can stop standing behind me like hospital security." He moved to the bench and handed her a cup of decaffeinated tea. She took a cautious sip. "You remembered. You said coffee tastes like burnt pennies." "It does." Nathan had brought his own tea, though he preferred coffee. Annie noticed but said nothing. For several minutes, they watched traffic crossing the bridges below. The city appeared calm from that height, as if no one inside it had received bad news that day. Annie reached into the pocket of her robe and removed the Howard letter. "The paper is wearing out," Nathan said. "I know. You could request another copy. It wouldn't be the same one." She unfolded it with care. "I used to read this on the bus after work. Every time the diner got busy and Leon asked me to stay late, I'd read it again so I could remember why I was tired." "What did you imagine first?" "The campus." "What about it?" "Red brick buildings, students carrying too many books, the marching band rehearsing somewhere I couldn't see." She smiled. "And being around people who wouldn't act surprised when I said I wanted more." Nathan looked at the letter. "You still want nursing?" "More now. After everything happening here?" "Because of everything happening here." She refolded the page. "Caroline remembers which side hurts after the biopsy. Dr. Patel tells me the truth even when I don't like it. That matters." Nathan lowered his cup. "Not every patient gets that." Annie heard something in his voice. "What did Olivia find?" He had hoped to wait until the investigation was clearer. "You went to 2 Cole Meridian clinics before this diagnosis." "I told you that." "The second doctor ordered more blood work. Your appointment was delayed because of an insurance review. Someone later changed the note to say you never returned." Annie's fingers tightened around the letter. "I sat there for 3 hours." "I know. They told me the lab had closed. The record says you left without completing the test." "I didn't." "I believe you." She looked toward the buildings below. Would it have changed anything? We don't know yet. That means maybe. Nathan did not answer. Annie pressed the letter against her knee. I kept thinking I should have argued harder. I should have asked for a supervisor. I should have gone somewhere else. You went back for help. The system failed after that. It was your system. Yes. The word remained between them without defense. After a while, Annie asked, "Why did you build hospitals?" Nathan gave the answer he had used in interviews for years: to improve access to care. She waited. He looked down at the tea in his hands. That's the answer I give shareholders. What's the real one? My sister had leukemia. Her name was Claire. Annie turned toward him. She was 19, Nathan continued. I was trying to build my first company. I believed money would solve every problem if I earned enough of it quickly. Did it? No. He told Annie that Claire called him 3 times on her final night. He was at a meeting and did not answer. By the time he arrived, she had died. Annie did not rush to comfort him. Was she alone? She asked. No. A nurse stayed with her. What was the nurse's name? Nathan looked at the city. Denise Brooks. Annie stopped moving. Nathan turned toward her. My mother's name was Denise Brooks. Neither spoke for several seconds. Annie reached toward the small canvas bag Mrs. Harper had brought from her apartment. She kept it beneath the blanket on her lap because it contained the few things she still had from Denise. I found this last night, she said. She opened the bag and removed an old hospital identification card. The photograph showed a younger Denise in pale blue scrubs. Beneath it were the words, Cole, Memorial Hospital. Nathan took the card carefully. Annie removed a faded photograph next. Denise stood beside a young white woman wearing a yellow scarf and a denim jacket. They were in a hospital courtyard, both holding paper cups. Nathan's hand went still. That's Claire. Annie looked from the picture to him. You're sure? I gave her that jacket. A small silver bracelet lay at the bottom of the bag. The letter C had been engraved on the clasp. Nathan opened his palm, and Annie placed it there. She kept this all those years, he said. There's a note, too. The paper had been folded inside a plain envelope. Annie opened it and read the first line silently before handing it to Nathan. Denise's handwriting was neat but faded. Claire was angry that Nathan had not come, but she did not spend her final hours speaking with anger. She asked Denise to tell him that she had not stopped believing he could return to the person she once knew. Nathan read the sentence twice. His shoulders lowered. The bracelet rested in his palm while his other hand covered his mouth. Annie moved from the wheelchair to the bench beside him. The effort left her tired, but she remained there. My mother used to say no one should be left alone when they're scared, she said. Nathan looked at Denise's note. She gave Claire what I didn't. She stayed. Yes. Annie touched the edge of the photograph. Maybe my mother stayed with your sister so you would know how to stay with me. Nathan closed his fingers around the bracelet, then opened them again as if afraid to hold it too tightly. Until that moment, he had believed he was helping Annie because her fear reminded him of Claire. Now Denise's handwriting connected the hospital room he had failed to enter with the room he refused to leave. Maya appeared at the garden entrance. The temperature is dropping. We should go back inside. Nathan stood but kept the note in his hand. Dr. Patel, I need you to review every record from Annie's earlier visits. Maya looked at his face, then at the old hospital badge in Annie's lap. I already asked compliance for copies. Olivia found that one of the notes was changed. Maya's expression hardened. Then preserve the original data before anyone else gains access. Nathan took out his phone and called Olivia. Make 3 copies, he said when she answered. 1 for independent counsel, 1 for Dr. Patel, and 1 stored outside Cole Meridian. What changed? Nathan looked at Annie, Claire's bracelet, and Denise's note. Everything, he said. This is no longer about paying 1 hospital bill. Annie held the Howard letter against her chest as Nathan pushed the wheelchair toward the elevator. For the first time since meeting him, she understood that he was not only staying beside her, he was beginning to turn toward the system that had left her waiting. Olivia worked from an unused conference room 2 floors below Annie's room. The blinds remained closed, and the laptop on the table was disconnected from Cole Meridian's main network. Beside it sat an encrypted drive provided by the outside attorney Nathan had contacted that morning. The altered note in Annie's file was only the beginning. Olivia compared scheduling records, billing codes, insurance reviews, and archived messages from 6 Cole Meridian clinics. The same phrases appeared again and again: low reimbursement probability, extended authorization review, non-urgent referral, patient failed to follow up. At first, the cases looked unrelated. Then she sorted them by zip code. Most came from neighborhoods on the south and west sides. Many patients relied on Medicaid, public transportation, or hourly jobs that made rescheduled appointments difficult. Their files showed repeated symptoms, delayed testing, and missed follow-up calls that had never been made. Olivia called Maya and asked her to come downstairs. Maya arrived between rounds, read the first 20 pages, and pulled out a chair. "This isn't triage," she said. "What is it?" "A financial filter placed ahead of medical judgment." Olivia turned the laptop toward her. "The system never records race. It doesn't need to. Zip code, credit history, insurance type, employment status, those can produce the same result while allowing everyone involved to claim the process is neutral." Could this have delayed Annie's diagnosis? Maya chose her words carefully. Her illness was not caused by the delay. But she returned with worsening symptoms, and the test was postponed because of an administrative category. We cannot pretend that had no medical consequence. Nathan entered carrying Denise's note in a clear hospital sleeve. Claire's bracelet remained in his coat pocket. "How many patients?" he asked. Olivia shook her head. "I can't tell yet. Hundreds at minimum, possibly thousands across the network." "Shut the program down." Maya looked at him. "Not yet." Nathan turned. "You just said it may have harmed patients." "I said preserve it first. If you erase the software before investigators copy the records, Graham will say you destroyed evidence." Nathan's jaw tightened. "Then freeze every automated decision and keep the servers intact." Olivia nodded. "Independent counsel can issue a preservation order." "Do it." His phone rang before she could begin. "Graham," Nathan answered. "What do you want?" "The board wants an explanation for why outside attorneys are requesting internal data." "They'll receive one." "From whom?" "Me." Graham paused. "I'm coming to the hospital." "That isn't necessary. It stopped being optional when you began treating a compliance question like a criminal investigation." He ended the call. Maya gathered the printed records. "Keep one copy outside the building." Olivia placed the encrypted drive inside her bag. "I already arranged it." Nathan looked at her. "With whom?" "A retired federal judge named Elijah Carter. He said you would recognize the name." Nathan did. Elijah had served as an independent advisor during Cole Meridian's early expansion and had resigned after warning that the company was moving too far from its original mission. Olivia called him from the conference phone. Elijah's voice came through rough and steady. "I've reviewed enough to know this is not a billing error." Nathan stood near the window. "What do you think it is?" "A system designed to make neglect look orderly." "We'll correct it." "That is not the first question." "What is?" "Who pays for what has already happened?" Nathan glanced toward the ceiling, as though he could see Annie's room through 2 floors of concrete. Elijah continued. "Justice is not fairness delivered from a comfortable office. It begins when powerful people stop asking vulnerable people to pay for their convenience." The call ended soon after, leaving Nathan with no simple answer. Graham arrived 40 minutes later wearing a dark overcoat and carrying the merger documents in a leather case. He found Nathan in Annie's room while Mrs. Harper arranged containers of baked chicken, green beans, and macaroni and cheese for the nursing staff. Annie was sitting upright in bed, reading notes from her classmates. Graham stopped near the doorway. "Nathan, may we speak privately?" Nathan stepped into the hallway but left the door open. Graham placed the documents on a side table. "The banks agreed to hold their terms until Friday. That is the final extension. This is not about the merger. Everything you do affects the merger." Nathan lowered his voice. "Did you approve the financial priority system used in our clinics?" Graham's face did not change. "Every hospital network uses resource management tools. This one delayed medical testing based on reimbursement. It prioritized limited services." "For whom?" "For the patients the system could support without closing the clinics entirely." Nathan took a printed page from Olivia's folder. Annie reported bruising, weight loss, and repeated nosebleeds. A physician ordered blood work. The appointment was delayed because her coverage required review. An unfortunate administrative failure. Someone changed the record. That should be investigated internally. It is being investigated independently. Graham stepped closer. You are allowing guilt to make decisions for you. Guilt did not alter the file. No, but guilt is making you treat one outcome as proof that the entire institution is corrupt. Nathan looked through the open door. Annie had stopped reading. She could hear enough to understand they were discussing her. She isn't one outcome, Nathan said. She is one person we can name. And the millions of patients this company treats each year? Do their hospitals remain open if you turn every financial decision into a moral confession? Nathan held his gaze. Do not call discrimination a financial decision. Graham picked up his case. You built this company because you understood that compassion without discipline collapses. Do not destroy it because one patient reminds you of your sister. Nathan's voice became quiet. Leave Claire out of this. I'm trying to protect what you built in her name. You're protecting a merger. I'm protecting the institution from a chairman who has forgotten the difference between leadership and emotion. Graham walked away without saying goodbye. When Nathan returned to the room, Annie was folding the note in her hands. Is he the man who runs the company? She asked. He's the chief executive officer. He looked at me like I was a bill he didn't want to pay. Nathan sat beside the bed. That may be closer to the truth than I want it to be. Downstairs, Olivia received a message from a technician she trusted. Corporate Information Security had requested access to Annie's archive records, including deleted versions and audit logs. The authorization came from Graham's office. Olivia copied the final files to the encrypted drive, then sent matching sets to Maya and independent counsel. Before shutting down the laptop, she saw that someone had already attempted to remove one of the clinic reports. The deletion failed because the preservation order had arrived first. Across town, Graham entered the boardroom and called the head of corporate communications. The patient's name will come out eventually, he said. We need to decide what the public believes before Nathan decides for them. By 8 the next morning, Annie's name was on 3 news sites. A business reporter had published a story claiming Nathan Cole had abandoned a $5.8 billion merger because of his unusual attachment to a young patient. The article included Annie's age, school, former foster care status, and the name of the diner where she worked. No one had asked her permission. Mrs. Harper found the story first and called the hospital. By the time she arrived, 2 photographers were waiting near the main entrance, and a television crew had parked across the street. Nathan learned about the leak when Olivia entered Annie's room holding her phone. You need to see this before she does. Annie was awake. Before I see what? Olivia stopped near the door. Nathan took the phone and read the headline. His expression tightened as he moved through the article. Who gave them her name? We're tracing it. Annie held out her hand. Let me see. Nathan did not give her the phone. There are details that should never have been released. They're details about me. I know. Then give it to me. Nathan hesitated long enough for Annie to understand. You said no one would make decisions over my head. He handed her the phone. She read the article without speaking. The room remained quiet, except for the low sound of the infusion pump beside her bed. The story described Nathan as emotionally unstable after a private medical scare. It suggested Annie's treatment might cost millions, and questioned whether the chairman of a hospital network should use personal influence to favor one patient. The comments beneath the article were worse. Some people accused her of manipulating him. Others said she should be grateful for any care she received. A few claimed she had invented the diagnosis. Several comments referred to her race without using words direct enough to trigger removal. Annie scrolled until Maya entered and took the phone from her hand. That's enough. You don't get to decide when it's enough. No, Maya said. But I can tell you when your heart rate is climbing and your body needs rest. Annie turned toward the window. They found a picture of me. The photograph showed her entering the hospital in a wheelchair, wearing the yellow cap and holding the Howard envelope against her chest. Nathan called Olivia. Have every photograph removed. We're sending legal notices now. Call the publisher. I already did. Then call again. Annie looked at him. Stop. Nathan lowered the phone. You can't erase this by ordering people around. I can protect your privacy. My privacy is already gone. I will find out who did it. And then what? Fire someone? Threaten a lawsuit? Make a statement about how much you care? Nathan's face changed. That isn't fair. Annie gave a short laugh without humor. Fair? Maya remained near the bed but did not interrupt. Annie turned the phone screen toward Nathan. People are saying I picked you because you're rich. They're saying I should have worked harder, bought better insurance, gone to another clinic. They think being sick is something I did to myself. They don't know you. They don't need to know me. They already decided what someone like me must be. Nathan sat in the visitor chair. Tell me what you want me to do. I want you to leave. He went still. Annie looked away. Before I met you, I only had to fight leukemia. Now I have to prove to strangers that I deserve treatment. I never wanted this to happen. I know. Then don't punish me for what Graham did. Her eyes returned to him. You still think this is about you? The sentence landed without anger. Nathan rose. Do you want me gone from the hospital? I want you out of the room. He nodded once. All right. He walked into the hallway and closed the door behind him. He did not leave the floor. Mrs. Harper arrived 20 minutes later with Annie's classmates waiting downstairs. Hospital security had refused to admit them because of the reporters near the entrance. Nathan explained what had happened. Does Annie want to see them? Mrs. Harper asked. I don't know. Then someone should ask her. I can have security bring them up. That wasn't what I said. Nathan looked through the glass panel in the door. Annie was sitting with her knees drawn up beneath the quilt. Mrs. Harper softened her voice. Helping her does not give you the right to fill every empty space around her. Nathan lowered his eyes. She asked me to leave. And you did? I'm in the hallway. That may be as far as she needs you to go. Mrs. Harper entered alone. She returned several minutes later and told the students to go home. Annie wanted to see her, but no one else. Before leaving, one classmate gave Mrs. Harper a folded card. Annie opened it after the door closed. You do not have to inspire anyone today. You only have to be here. She read it twice and placed it beside her Howard letter. Across the hall, Olivia showed Nathan the first findings from the privacy audit. Someone accessed Annie's record at 2:13 yesterday morning, using an executive security credential. Whose? The credential was assigned to a consultant hired through Graham's office. Can we prove Graham ordered it? Not yet. The consultant claims the request came through an unnamed hospital employee. Nathan looked toward Annie's room. What about the reporter? The same public relations firm contacted him 2 hours before the article was published. Send everything to outside counsel. Olivia nodded. There's more. The board scheduled an emergency meeting for tomorrow. Let them. They plan to question whether you're still fit to lead. Nathan almost answered, but the door opened. Annie stood inside wearing the yellow cap. She looked tired, but her voice was steady. I want to release a statement. Nathan stepped closer. You don't have to answer them. I'm not answering them. I'm speaking for myself. Maya joined them with an independent patient advocate. Together, they moved into a small consultation room where Annie dictated each sentence. Nathan offered suggestions twice. Both times, Annie rejected them. An hour later, her statement appeared through the hospital's patient rights office. I did not ask to become a public story. I asked one person not to leave me alone after I received a serious diagnosis. My private medical information was shared without my permission. I will not be ashamed of being sick, poor, black, or afraid. I also will not allow anyone to use my illness to avoid questions about why my diagnosis was delayed. Within minutes, nurses' organizations and patient rights groups began sharing it. Former foster youth posted messages of support. Black physicians described similar delays they had seen in underserved communities. Howard University's nursing faculty sent Annie a private letter, assuring her that her admission remained secure. Nathan read the responses from the hallway. You were right, he said when Annie returned to her room. About what? You didn't need me to speak for you. I needed you not to speak over me. Nathan nodded. I understand. Annie rested one hand on the door. No, you understand the sentence. A faint trace of a smile appeared. The rest takes longer. She closed the door, but not completely. Nathan returned to the vinyl chair outside and placed his phone face down beside him. Across town, Graham watched Annie's statement spread through the evening news. The story he had intended to control was moving beyond him. He called the board secretary. Move the meeting to 8 in the morning, he said. By tomorrow, Nathan Cole will have to choose between that patient and the company. At 7:40 the next morning, Graham entered a private consultation room on the oncology floor carrying a leather case. Nathan was already there with Olivia and an attorney from the independent firm reviewing Annie's records. Graham closed the door. You could have come to headquarters. I'm staying here. The board meets in 20 minutes. Then speak quickly. Graham placed the case on the table and removed several printed reports. You released internal information to outside counsel without executive approval. You disrupted a merger that took 18 months to negotiate. Now a patient statement is driving national coverage about discrimination in our clinics. The coverage exists because someone from your office released her medical information. That has not been proven. Olivia placed an audit report on the table. The consultant who accessed Annie's file was retained through your communications budget. A vendor used an authorized credential. That does not mean I ordered a privacy violation. Nathan slid Annie's altered clinic record toward him. Who changed this? Graham barely glanced at it. Administrative records are corrected every day. This correction says she never returned for testing. Perhaps that was the information available at the time. She checked in. Then a clerk made an error. The original note said her appointment was delayed during financial review. Graham's expression remained controlled. You want a confession when what you have is an imperfect system. Did you approve the financial priority program? I approved a resource management tool. It placed reimbursement ahead of medical follow-up. It kept clinics open. Nathan stood. By delaying care for patients least able to challenge the decision. You think hospitals survive on good intentions? Graham asked. They survive because someone is willing to make choices other people find unpleasant. Annie's blood test was not an unpleasant choice. It was necessary care. And now you are prepared to place an entire network at risk because one case has become personal. Nathan's voice lowered. She is not a case. To you, perhaps. To a system serving millions, she is one file among millions. The room went quiet. Olivia looked at Graham as though hearing him clearly for the first time. Nathan asked, "What is Annie Brooks to you?" Graham closed the folder in front of him. A patient facing treatment that may cost several $1 million, with limited insurance coverage and no measurable financial return. Olivia turned away. Nathan remained still. Thank you. For what? For finally saying it without hiding behind policy language. Graham checked his watch. The board will decide whether you remain capable of leading this company. The meeting began through a secure video connection from the same room. 12 directors appeared across the screen, seated around the walnut table at headquarters. Some had worked with Nathan for decades. None greeted him with more than a brief nod. Graham presented first. He described Nathan's canceled meeting, outside investigation, personal guarantee of Annie's expenses, and contact with federal counsel. He called Nathan's decisions impulsive and connected them to the fear he had experienced while awaiting his biopsy result. Nathan did not interrupt. When Graham finished, the lead independent director spoke. Nathan, no one questions your concern for the patient. The issue is whether personal concern has impaired your judgment. Her name is Annie Brooks. We understand. Then use it. Several directors shifted in their seats. Nathan continued. Annie sought care twice at our clinics. A physician ordered further testing. Our financial system delayed it. Someone later changed the record to make the delay appear to be her fault. A director from Boston adjusted her glasses. Has an independent review confirmed discrimination? The review has confirmed that patients from low-income zip codes were more likely to face delayed referrals and additional authorization barriers. Correlation is not proof of intent, Graham said. Nathan looked at the screen. A system does not need hateful language to produce an unjust result. The board's attorney advised them not to discuss liability on the recorded call. A vote followed. Nathan was suspended from executive authority pending a formal review. He retained his title as chairman, but Graham would control daily operations. 8 directors voted in favor. 3 abstained. No one voted against it. Nathan recognized the meaning of their silence. They did not need to agree with Graham. They only needed to fear the cost of opposing him. The connection ended. Graham remained in the consultation room. You can still contain this, he said. He opened his leather case and removed a proposed agreement. Cole Meridian would continue paying every expense related to Annie's treatment. Specialists, medication, transplantation, education, housing during recovery, everything would be covered. Nathan read the first page. What do you want? Your support for the merger. The investigation stays internal. No documents go to government agencies. Annie signs a confidentiality agreement. And the financial system? We suspend it while a committee conducts a review. Publicly? No. Nathan closed the document. Graham spoke more quietly. Without this agreement, your personal guarantee may be challenged. You no longer control company resources. Her treatment could become complicated, while attorneys argue over payment. You would use her care as leverage? I am offering certainty. You cannot offer that. I can offer access. Right now, that is what she needs. Nathan hated that part of the argument because it was true. Annie needed options, and Graham had placed those options behind a contract. Nathan carried the agreement to her room. Annie sat beneath the church quilt, reading a message from Howard's nursing faculty. Maya stood near the window reviewing her latest blood counts. Nathan placed the papers on the table. What is that? Annie asked. An offer from the company. She read the first pages slowly. When she reached the confidentiality section, she looked up. They'll pay for everything if I don't talk? They'll also continue your coverage if I lose control of the company. And what happens to the other patients? There would be an internal review. Would the public see it? I don't know. That means no. Nathan pulled the visitor chair closer. Your treatment has to come first. My treatment already came late because everyone thought money came first. This could protect your care. And protect them. It could give us time. To do what? Wait until people stop asking questions? Nathan rubbed one hand across his forehead. I am trying to keep you alive. Annie's voice softened, but it did not weaken. I know. That's why I need you to listen. She placed the agreement on the blanket. If I accept this, they will say the problem was solved because one patient got help. Then the next person with the wrong zip code waits 3 months, and no one writes an article about it. You are not responsible for every patient in the system. Neither are you, if that is what you want to believe. Nathan looked at her. Annie continued. If I live because everyone else stays invisible, they didn't save me. They bought my silence. The words remained in the room. Nathan picked up the agreement and tore it once through the middle. Maya watched him. That decision may have consequences. It should. Annie looked at the torn pages. You were thinking about signing it. Yes. Because you were scared? Yes. She nodded. Fear doesn't decide who you are. What you do after it does. Maya's pager sounded. She checked the message, then turned to Annie. We have another result to discuss. Your response to the first treatment is weaker than we hoped. Annie's hand moved toward the Howard letter. What does that mean? We may need a stem cell transplant. We'll begin searching the National Registry immediately. Can family be tested? Maya paused. A relative is often useful, but we can search for an unrelated donor. Annie looked toward the blank emergency contact form on the table. Nathan asked, how difficult is it to find a match? It can be difficult for anyone, Maya said. For Black patients, the odds are often lower because fewer registered donors share the genetic markers we need. Nathan reached for his phone. We'll organize a national campaign. Annie stopped him. Not with my face on every poster. No photographs without your approval. And it can't be only about me. Nathan put the phone down. What should it be about? Annie looked at the torn agreement. Everyone's still waiting for someone to notice them. The donor campaign began at New Hope Church 2 days later. Folding tables filled the fellowship hall, and volunteers handed out consent forms beside boxes of coffee and glazed donuts. Annie had approved one sentence for every poster. Someone you may never meet is waiting for a decision only you can make. Her photograph appeared nowhere. Nathan remained at the hospital while Mrs. Harper sent him updates. By noon, more than 200 people had registered. By evening, the number had passed 500. Annie read the messages from her bed. They really came? They're still coming, Nathan said. People give up a Saturday for free coffee? Apparently the donuts helped. She smiled, then pulled the blanket higher around her shoulders. Nathan noticed the change. Are you cold? A little. He reached for the call button. I'm fine. You said that before your pain was a 6. It's probably the room. Nathan pressed the button once. Caroline entered with a thermometer. Annie's temperature was above 102. Within minutes, the room became busy. Caroline drew blood from Annie's central line while another nurse checked her pressure. Maya arrived before the first laboratory results returned. When did the chills begin? She asked. Maybe an hour ago. Why didn't you call? Annie looked away. I thought they would stop. Maya placed a hand near Annie's wrist without softening the seriousness in her voice. During treatment, a fever is never something you wait out. Nathan stood near the bed. What does this mean? It may be an infection. Her immune system is weak. So we're starting antibiotics now. Annie tried to sit up. Am I staying here? For the moment, the antibiotics began, but her fever continued rising. Her blood pressure fell despite fluids. By evening, Maya ordered her transfer to intensive care. Nathan followed the bed into the hallway until a nurse stopped him at the unit doors. We need room to work. I'm her emergency contact. You can come in after we settle her. The doors closed between them. Nathan remained where he was, still holding Annie's yellow cap. She had removed it when the fever made her skin too warm. Olivia found him 20 minutes later. What happened? En infection. How serious? He looked through the glass, but the staff around Annie blocked his view. No one has answered that yet. Maya came out wearing a protective gown and gloves. The infection has entered her bloodstream. We're treating sepsis. Nathan's grip tightened around the cap. Call anyone you need. The appropriate team is already here. Should she be transferred? No. Moving her would add risk without improving her care. What can I do? Maya studied him. Stay calm enough that she doesn't have to comfort you. When Nathan was allowed inside, Annie had oxygen beneath her nose and several medications running through the lines beside her bed. She opened her eyes when he sat down. The campaign, she whispered. Did it work? It's still going. How many? More than 500 today. That's good. It is. She looked toward the monitor beside her. This is bad, isn't it? Nathan wanted to tell her it was temporary. Instead, he remembered the rules she had written on the back of her Howard letter. No lies. It's serious, he said. They're treating it. Annie nodded as if he had confirmed something she already knew. A hospital social worker entered carrying a clipboard. She explained that Annie should formally name someone to make medical decisions if she became unable to speak for herself. Mrs. Harper, Nathan said. The social worker shook her head. She can be considered, but Annie has to choose and complete the documents while she can still provide informed consent. Annie looked at Nathan. You. He thought he had misheard her. No. Why not? You need someone with better judgment. I've seen your judgment. It's improving. This isn't something to joke about. I'm not joking. Nathan lowered his voice. Annie, I am too close to this. I might make a decision because I'm afraid. Then listen to Dr. Patel. You deserve someone better qualified. I don't need perfect. Her voice weakened, but she kept her eyes on him. I need the person who will still be here. Nathan looked toward Maya. She has the right to choose, Maya said. The social worker placed the papers on the tray table. Annie gave her instructions carefully. She wanted treatment, continued, while the medical team believed recovery remained possible. She wanted Mrs. Harper informed. She wanted her privacy protected. Denise's photographs, Claire's bracelet, and the Howard letter were to remain together. If I get scared and can't talk, Annie said, read the letter. Nathan's hand stopped above the signature line. You're going to read it yourself again. That isn't what I asked. He signed. Annie closed her eyes after the documents were witnessed. Thank you. You don't have to thank me. I know. Olivia returned near midnight with news from the donor registry. A man in Maryland had been identified as a possible match. More testing was required, and Annie would need to recover from the infection before the transplant could be considered. Nathan leaned closer to the bed. They may have found someone. Annie's eyes opened slightly. Who? We don't know much yet. Tell him thank you. When the rules allow it, she gave a faint nod and drifted back to sleep. Outside the room, Olivia handed Nathan a second message. The board moved the final vote to tomorrow morning. Independent counsel thinks several directors may support you if you appear in person and offer a limited reform plan. How long would I be gone? The car could have you there and back in 2 hours. Nathan looked through the glass at Annie. Olivia followed his attention. If you lose control of the company. Graham controls the funding decisions. I know. This may be your last chance. Nathan remembered every argument he had once made about meetings that could not wait and decisions only he could make. The words had sounded reasonable then, too. I'll attend remotely. Graham says remote attendance won't be accepted. Then record that I chose the hospital. Inside the room, an alarm sounded. Maya and 2 nurses moved quickly to Annie's bed. As her breathing became strained, Nathan entered only far enough for Annie to see him. Maya explained that they needed to place a breathing tube so her body could rest while the medication worked. Annie's eyes searched the room until they found Nathan. You're still here, she whispered. He placed the yellow cap beside her hand. I'm still here. The medication took effect. and Annie's eyes closed. Nathan stepped outside as the team began the procedure. He sat in the chair beyond the glass, placed his phone face down beside him, and opened his laptop. The board meeting would begin at sunrise. He would face it from the hallway. At 7:58, Olivia connected Nathan's laptop to the secure board system. The camera showed him seated outside intensive care in yesterday's shirt, with the glass door to Annie's room behind him. Across the screen, 12 directors sat around the walnut table at Cole Meridian headquarters. Graham occupied the chair nearest Nathan's empty place. The lead director cleared his throat. "Nathan, this meeting requires your physical attendance." "I'm attending." "You were informed that a remote appearance would not be accepted." Nathan glanced through the glass. Annie remained connected to the ventilator while Maya reviewed the monitors beside her bed. "I was informed," he said. "I declined." Graham folded his hands on the table. "This is precisely the problem. You continue placing one personal matter ahead of your responsibilities. Her name is Annie Brooks. We know her name. Then use it." No one did. The lead director opened a printed agenda. "We are prepared to reconsider your suspension if you support the merger, allow an internal review of the clinic program, and agree not to release additional records until legal counsel completes its work." Nathan looked toward Olivia. She stood beside the laptop holding the encrypted drive and a folder containing the audit reports. "What does internal review mean?" Nathan asked. Graham answered. "A committee appointed by the board will examine the system and recommend changes. Will the findings be public? That would depend on legal advice. Will patients be notified that their referrals may have been delayed? We will determine whether notification is necessary. Will the original data be provided to federal civil rights investigators?" Graham's expression tightened. "There is no evidence requiring federal involvement." Nathan lifted one of Annie's clinic records. A physician ordered blood testing after she reported bruising, weight loss, exhaustion, and repeated nosebleeds. The appointment was delayed during financial review. Someone later changed the record to say she failed to return. "We have already discussed this," Graham said. "No, you dismissed it." Nathan placed the record beside the laptop. Annie checked in that morning. Transportation records confirm it. The laboratory closed while she waited for insurance authorization. 3 months later, she received a high-risk leukemia diagnosis. A director from Boston spoke. Can anyone prove the delay affected her medical outcome? Maya had warned Nathan that the answer required care. "No one can prove what an earlier test would have changed," he said. "That does not make the delay acceptable." Graham turned toward the other directors. "This is an emotional argument. Large health systems make thousands of scheduling decisions every day. Not every delay is discrimination." Olivia stepped closer to the camera. "We reviewed 6 clinics. Patients from low-income zip codes were more likely to receive additional authorization reviews, fewer follow-up calls, and longer waits for specialty referrals. The software used insurance status, credit history, employment data, and neighborhood information to predict reimbursement. It did not use race," Graham said. Nathan answered. "A policy can avoid the word and still punish the same people." The board's attorney interrupted. "We should avoid statements that could be interpreted as admissions of liability." Nathan looked directly into the camera. "Then let this one be clear. I approved the cost targets that allowed this system to grow. I rewarded executives for improving margins without asking who paid for those improvements. I received warnings from physicians and community clinics, and I chose reports that made the company look successful." Several directors lowered their eyes. Graham leaned forward. "You are exposing Cole Meridian to claims that could cost billions. Those claims already exist. Silence only protects us from hearing them. You will destroy the merger." "Yes." The room became still. The lead director removed his glasses. "Nathan, think carefully before you continue. I have spent years asking other people to accept consequences that never reached my office. I am thinking carefully now." He announced that he was withdrawing his controlling support for the $5.8 billion merger. Without his vote, the transaction could not proceed. He then stated that independent counsel had already delivered preserved copies of the records to federal healthcare and civil rights authorities. Graham stood. "You had no authority to do that after your suspension. The records were preserved before the vote suspending me. You planned this. I prepared for the possibility that the board would value control more than truth." A market alert appeared on one of the screens behind the directors. Cole Meridian shares had begun falling. Another alert followed within seconds. Graham pointed toward the numbers. "Look at what you are doing." Nathan did. For years, those figures had measured his worth. Now they recorded the financial cost of admitting what the company had done. "I see it. You are wiping out years of work. I am ending a deal." The harm happened before this morning. Nathan removed a signed letter from the folder beside him. "I resign as executive chairman, effective immediately." Olivia looked at him, though she had known the letter existed. The lead director said, "Your resignation does not resolve control of your shares." "No, this does." Nathan explained that his controlling shares would be transferred into an independent public benefit trust. The trust would include voting representatives chosen from patients, nurses, physicians, community clinics, and civil rights experts. Nathan would retain no unilateral authority. Graham stared at the screen. "You cannot hand a medical network to activists and committees. I am placing oversight with people who understand what our decisions do after they leave the boardroom. You built this company. That did not give me the right to stop listening." The board attorney requested an immediate private recess. Nathan refused to disconnect. Olivia inserted the encrypted drive into the laptop and uploaded the audit trail to every director. The files included the altered clinic notes, internal warnings about racial disparities, and records showing that a public relations consultant hired through Graham's office had accessed Annie's confidential information. Graham's voice lost its calm. "Those files are incomplete. The original server logs are with independent counsel," Olivia said. "You had no authorization. I had a duty to report patient harm. I can have you removed before lunch." Olivia met his eyes through the screen. "You no longer have time to frighten everyone before they read the evidence." The lead director called for the meeting to stop. Nathan spoke before the connection ended. "A hospital system is not saved because its buildings remain open or its stock recovers. It is saved when patients can enter without wondering whether their zip code matters more than their symptoms." The screen went dark. Nathan closed the laptop. His hands were steady until an alarm sounded inside Annie's room. Maya moved quickly toward the bed. 2 nurses followed. A warning light flashed on the monitor as Annie's heart rate began to fall. Nathan stood, but the intensive care nurse blocked the doorway. "We need space." He looked past her at Annie, then at the silent laptop on the chair. The merger was gone. His title was gone. The company was no longer his to command. None of it mattered while the number on Annie's monitor continued dropping. Maya called for emergency medication. The curtain began to close. Nathan reached into Annie's bag and found the worn Howard envelope. He held it with both hands outside the glass, waiting for the moment when staying would be the only thing he had left to give. Maya's voice cut through the alarms. "Start the medication. Check the line again." Nathan remained outside the glass while nurses moved around Annie's bed. The curtain covered part of the room, but he could still see the monitor above her. The number continued falling. He pressed the Howard envelope between his palms. An intensive care nurse stepped into the hallway and pulled the door nearly closed behind her. "Her heart rhythm is unstable," she said. "The team is treating it. Do you need another specialist?" "They're already here." "What about transferring her?" "She cannot be moved. There must be something else." The nurse looked at him without impatience. "There is nothing you can arrange from this hallway, Mr. Cole." Nathan turned toward the glass. "Can she hear me?" "She is sedated, but hearing can remain. Talk to her if you need to." He looked down at the envelope. Annie had carried it through every appointment, every night of nausea, every argument about money and privacy. The paper was worn at the folds. One corner had torn inside her backpack and been held together with clear tape. He opened it carefully. "Annie," he said through the glass, "you asked me to read this if you got scared." No response came from the bed. Nathan unfolded the letter. "Dear Annie Brooks, it is our pleasure to offer you admission to Howard University for the upcoming academic year." His voice sounded too low beneath the alarms. He moved closer to the door and began again. "Dear Annie Brooks, it is our pleasure to offer you admission to Howard University." A nurse glanced toward him, then returned to the medication pump. Nathan continued through every sentence. He read the name of the nursing program, the scholarship award, the housing information, and the invitation to join the incoming class. He did not skip the formal language or the dates that had already passed. When he reached the final line, the monitor still had not settled. Nathan lowered the letter, then raised it again. You told me about the campus, he said. The red brick buildings. The students carrying too many books. The marching band you said you would hear before you could see it. His hand began to shake. Mrs. Harper has already collected things for your dorm room. She says you need better towels because the ones in your apartment should have been replaced years ago. Leon is keeping your job, even though he knows you plan to leave him the first chance you get. A nurse adjusted the ventilator. Maya ordered another dose. Nathan watched Annie's face. The breathing tube concealed part of it, and the yellow cap rested beside her hand. The donor in Maryland is still completing the final tests, Nathan continued. More than 2,000 people have joined the registry since the first event. Most of them will never meet you. They came because you asked them to remember everyone who is still waiting. The monitor gave another warning tone. Nathan tightened his grip on the letter. I promise not to lie to you, so I won't tell you that any of this is guaranteed. I won't tell you that wanting a future is enough to make it happen. His voice broke, but he kept speaking. I'll tell you that your future is still here. It is in this envelope. It is in the textbooks Mrs. Harper says you will complain about carrying. It is in every patient you said you wanted to sit beside one day. He moved closer until one hand rested against the glass. You asked me for a few hours. I'm asking you for more. Inside the room, Maya watched the monitor. Again, she told the nurse. Give it again. Nathan closed his eyes for 1 second. He could not call another physician. He could not offer a larger payment. He could not trade his shares, his name, or the remains of the merger for the number on the monitor to rise. All he could do was remain where Annie had asked him to remain. I'm still here, he said. You don't have to answer. You don't have to be strong. Just don't think this room is empty. The rhythm on the monitor changed. Nathan opened his eyes. The number rose, dropped, then rose again. Maya stayed near the bed, watching the screen. After several minutes, the alarms stopped sounding one after another. No one celebrated. The staff continued working until the room became quieter. Maya finally stepped into the hallway. She removed her gloves and leaned against the wall for a moment before speaking. Her rhythm has stabilized. Nathan lowered the letter. Is she safe? She survived the crisis. That is all I can promise right now. What happens next? We watch her closely. The infection is still serious, and her body has been under enormous strain. Can I go in? In a few minutes. Nathan sat in the vinyl chair because his legs would no longer support him. He pressed the Howard letter against his chest and looked through the glass. Olivia approached from the elevator but stopped when she saw his face. Annie? Alive. Olivia sat beside him. Neither mentioned the board meeting, the merger, or the financial reports spreading across the news. Mrs. Harper arrived before dawn carrying a metal thermos and a paper bag from the diner. Rain covered the shoulders of her coat. She looked through the glass first. Is she alive? Yes. Only then did she sit. Leon had packed biscuits with butter and a container of scrambled eggs. By the time Mrs. Harper opened the bag, the biscuits were cold. She handed one to Nathan. You should eat. I'm not hungry. That has never stopped a hospital waiting room from requiring food. He accepted it. They ate without speaking. The biscuit was dry, and the coffee from the thermos was too strong. Nathan had eaten meals prepared by chefs whose names appeared in magazines, but nothing had ever felt more necessary. Near sunrise, Maya allowed him into Annie's room. Nathan sat beside the bed and placed the Howard letter on the table where she could see it when she woke. Her hand rested near the edge of the blanket. He did not touch it until one finger moved. The motion was small enough that he thought he had imagined it. Then her fingers shifted again. Nathan placed his hand beneath hers. Annie? Her eyes did not open, but her hand closed weakly around one of his fingers. Maya checked the monitor. She may be responding to your voice. Nathan leaned closer. You heard the letter? There was no answer. That's all right. I'll read it again when you can complain about my delivery. Her fingers moved once more. Nathan sat with her until morning rounds. When Olivia returned, she carried a report showing that federal investigators had received the preserved clinic records. News outlets were reporting Nathan's resignation, the collapse of the merger, and the allegations against Graham. Nathan read only the first page. Send everything to the attorneys, he said. There's also a request for a statement. No statement about Annie. What should I say about the company? The records speak for themselves. He handed the report back and looked at the woman in the hospital bed. For years, Nathan had believed important decisions were made in boardrooms. That morning, the decision that mattered most had required no vote, no signature, and no authority. It had required him to sit beside Annie's bed and remain there while the outcome stayed beyond his control. Annie opened her eyes 2 days later. Nathan was asleep in the visitor chair with his head lowered and the Howard letter folded across his lap. Maya stood beside the bed reviewing the monitor when Annie moved her hand. "Don't try to speak yet," Maya said. "The breathing tube is out, but your throat will be sore." Annie's eyes moved toward Nathan. Maya touched his shoulder. "Mr. Cole." He woke at once and leaned forward. "Annie?" She tried to speak. Only a rough sound came out. Nathan picked up a cup containing small pieces of ice and held one near her lips. After several minutes, Annie managed 2 words. "The meeting." Nathan understood. "I attended from the hallway." "Did you win?" "No." Her eyes narrowed with faint amusement. "I told the truth," he added. Annie closed her eyes again. More useful. Her recovery from the infection took weeks. Progress came in small measurements. Lower fever, stronger blood pressure, fewer medications, several steps beside the bed. A physical therapist taught her how to stand without becoming dizzy. Caroline celebrated the first time Annie reached the doorway, but Annie asked her not to clap. "I walked 10 feet. You were in intensive care last week. I still don't need applause." Caroline smiled. "Then I'll save it for 20 feet. The donor registry confirmed that the man in Maryland was a strong match. His name was Marcus Reed, a school bus mechanic who had joined the registry after a cousin struggled to find a donor. Privacy rules prevented direct contact, but the coordinator told Annie that Marcus had agreed to every required test. "He doesn't know me," Annie said. "He knows someone needs him," Nathan replied. "That was enough?" "For him, apparently." Annie looked toward the yellow cap on her table. Sometimes enough is smaller than people think. The transplant could not begin until Annie recovered from sepsis and completed another round of chemotherapy. Her body responded slowly. Some days she completed every exercise and ate half her lunch. On others, she refused food, conversation, and encouragement. Nathan learned not to enter without asking. One afternoon, Annie said, "I don't want company." He stopped near the door. "Do you want me to leave the floor?" "No, just the room." "All right. You're not angry?" "No." "You look disappointed." "I can be disappointed without making it your responsibility." She considered that, then nodded. "You're improving." While Annie prepared for the transplant, federal investigators expanded their review of Cole Meridian. Olivia gave them emails, archived reports, and audit logs showing that Graham had been warned about the effect of the financial priority system. One message from a clinic director was direct. "Patients from Black neighborhoods are being delayed at higher rates. We need to suspend this process until the medical consequences are reviewed." Graham's answer contained 6 words. "Continue implementation. Revise the language." Other records showed that his office had ordered staff to describe delayed appointments as patient noncompliance. The same communications consultant who accessed Annie's private file had also provided her identity to a reporter. The board removed Graham as chief executive. He called Nathan that evening. "You think they'll forgive you because you gave away control?" Nathan stood near the hospital window while rain crossed the city. "This isn't about forgiveness. You built Cole Meridian. Now lawyers, government officials, and people who have never managed a hospital will tear it apart. They're examining what we did. We made difficult choices. You made hidden choices and sent the cost to people who had no seat in the room." Graham's voice hardened. "You approved the targets." "Yes." The answer silenced him for a moment. Nathan continued, "I'll say that under oath. You'll destroy yourself." "No. I'll describe myself accurately." He ended the call. Graham was later charged with healthcare fraud, obstruction, retaliation, and conspiracy connected to altered records. Nathan's attorneys warned that his own testimony could expose him to lawsuits and financial penalties. He testified anyway. He explained that he had not designed the software, altered Annie's file, or leaked her records. Then he explained why that did not make him innocent. He had rewarded lower costs without asking how they were achieved. He had ignored physicians whose warnings threatened expansion plans. He had allowed polished reports to replace human consequences. Families affected by delayed diagnoses filed a class action lawsuit. Nathan supported a settlement funded in part by his personal assets. Cole Meridian agreed to remove the financial priority program, notify patients whose care may have been delayed, publish data on racial disparities, expand transportation assistance, and place community representatives on the governing trust. Employees who reported patient safety concerns received new legal protection. Nathan sold his private jet and several investment properties to help fund compensation and neighborhood clinics. Annie read about the sale while waiting for the transplant. "You still have a house?" she asked. "Yes." "Akar?" "Several." "Then the newspapers need to calm down." Nathan almost laughed. "They called it a dramatic sacrifice." "It sounds like downsizing." "That is less impressive. It is more honest." The transplant began in early spring. Marcus's donated cells arrived in a sealed container carried by a medical courier. Caroline checked the information with another nurse before the infusion started. Annie watched the bag hanging above her. "That's it?" "That's it," Maya said. "It looks ordinary. Many important things do." Nathan sat beside the bed but did not reach for Annie's hand until she offered it. The days afterward were difficult. Annie remained in protective isolation while the medical team waited for signs that the new cells were working. She developed mouth sores, weakness, and another fever. Food tasted metallic. Walking to the bathroom required help. One morning, she pushed away the breakfast tray. "I'm tired of people telling me I'm brave." Nathan moved the tray aside. "Then you don't have to be brave today. I might not be brave tomorrow either. I'll adjust my schedule." She looked at him. "You don't have a company to run anymore." "I still have a schedule." "What's on it?" "This conversation." Annie shook her head, but a smile appeared. 3 weeks after the transplant, Maya entered with the latest blood counts. "The new cells are producing healthy blood cells." Annie searched her face. "Does that mean it worked?" "It means the first major step worked. We still have to watch for complications and relapse." Nathan did not ask for a guarantee. "What does she need next?" he asked. Maya looked at him with quiet approval. Time. Outside the hospital, the donor campaign continued. Registration tables appeared in churches, union halls, colleges, barbershops, fire stations, and neighborhood festivals. Thousands joined, many saying they had never understood how difficult it could be for Black patients to find a close match. Annie chose the message printed on every table. "Someone you may never meet is waiting for a decision only you can make." Months later, Claire's bracelet and Denise's note were placed in a small display at the new patient support office. Nathan did not put them in corporate headquarters. The office served people who arrived alone. When Annie saw the display, she touched the glass near her mother's handwriting. "Do you think justice is done now?" she asked. Nathan stood beside her. "No. Why not? Justice isn't one man being charged or one policy being removed. It's what happens after the cameras leave." Annie nodded. Downstairs, another donor registration event was beginning. Volunteers unfolded tables, while hospital workers carried boxes through the lobby. Quiet work continued, performed by people whose names would never appear in a headline. For the first time, Nathan understood that this was what change usually looked like. 18 months after Annie first entered Cole Meridian Medical Center, Nathan sat in the same 6th-floor hallway where she had asked him for a few hours. The vinyl chair had not changed. The television above the waiting area still reported traffic delays and weather. A medication cart moved past, followed by the sound of an elevator opening somewhere around the corner. Nathan's phone remained in his coat pocket. He had received 3 messages that morning from the foundation office, and one from an attorney handling the final terms of the patient settlement. None required an immediate answer. Mrs. Harper sat beside him with a canvas bag at her feet, and yellow yarn looped around 2 knitting needles. "You're moving your leg again," she said. Nathan stopped. "You did that the first morning too." "You weren't here." "Annie told me." "She remembers too much." Mrs. Harper continued knitting. "Only when it concerns people she cares about." Nathan looked toward the closed consultation room door. Annie was inside receiving the results of her latest bone marrow test. She had completed the transplant. Months of isolation, physical therapy, and follow-up treatment. Her strength had returned slowly. So had her hair, now growing in short, dark curls around her face. She had started classes at Howard remotely before moving to Washington for the spring semester. Her backpack now carried nursing textbooks instead of medical consent forms, though the old acceptance letter remained inside a clear, protective sleeve. Nathan had waited for his own biopsy result in that hallway without telling anyone he was afraid. Waiting for Annie's result was worse. The door opened. Annie stepped out wearing a Howard University sweatshirt and jeans. Maya followed with a folder in her hand. Nathan stood too quickly. Annie's eyes were wet. but her mouth curved into a smile. Maya spoke first. "There is no evidence of active leukemia." Nathan closed his eyes for a moment. Annie walked toward him. "You can say something. That is very good news." "That's all?" "It's the only sentence I trust myself to finish." Mrs. Harper placed her knitting aside and hugged Annie. "Your mother would be proud of you." Annie held her for several seconds before stepping away. Maya reminded them that remission was not a permanent guarantee. Annie would continue regular testing, and the medical team would watch for long-term effects from the transplant. Annie listened without looking away. A year earlier, she might have heard only the uncertainty. Now she asked for the date of her next appointment and entered it into her phone. Nathan noticed. "You didn't ask me to remind you. I'm in nursing school now. I have a calendar. You ignored the last 2 reminders I sent. Because you sent them 6 days early. That gave you time to prepare. For a blood test?" Mrs. Harper picked up her canvas bag. Some things improve slowly. They took the elevator to the outpatient treatment floor. Near the nurses' station, a brass bell had been mounted on the wall for patients completing a major stage of care. Caroline waited beside it with Olivia, Leon, several nurses, members of New Hope Church, and classmates who had traveled home for the weekend. On a monitor near the wall, Marcus Reed joined them through a secure video call from Maryland. Annie approached the screen. "So you're Marcus. And you're Annie. You look different from what I imagined." Marcus smiled. "I hope that's not bad." "No. I just pictured someone taller." Nathan lowered his head to hide a smile. Marcus said, "I heard you're studying nursing." "I am. I also heard you joined the registry in a church basement. They had barbecue afterward. So food was involved." "Good food." Annie nodded. "That makes more sense." Her expression softened. "Thank you," she said. "I know people probably say there are no words for something like this, but I still wanted to try." Marcus looked down for a moment. "I sat in a chair for 15 minutes and let someone swab my cheek. Those 15 minutes became the rest of my life." No one spoke after that. Caroline placed one hand near the bell. "Ready?" Annie took the rope and rang it 3 times. The sound carried down the hallway. The first ring was for Denise. The second was for Claire. The third was for every person still waiting for a diagnosis, a donor, or someone willing to remain beside them. Nathan stood near the edge of the group. He had learned not to place himself at the center of Annie's victories. After the small gathering ended, they walked to the patient companion office on the first floor. The sign beside the entrance read, "The Denise Brooks, Claire Cole Patient Companion Foundation." Below it were 5 words. "No one fights alone." The office arranged transportation, temporary housing, meals, legal support, and trained companions for patients who arrived without family. Former foster youth could also receive help with insurance forms and medical decisions. Olivia now directed the independent ethics office created after the federal investigation. Maya advised the foundation without accepting a corporate title. Mrs. Harper volunteered twice a week. Nathan had proposed putting Annie's name on the program. She refused. "I'm still alive," she had told him. "Don't turn me into a plaque when I have work to do." A small display inside held Claire's silver bracelet beside Denise's handwritten note. Annie stopped in front of it. Nathan placed one hand in his coat pocket, then removed it. He no longer carried the bracelet with him. "It looks right here," Annie said. "Yes, better than in an office upstairs." "Much better." They returned to the 6th floor before leaving for the airport. Annie's flight to Washington departed that afternoon, and Nathan had already checked the weather twice. She sat in the chair where he had once waited for his biopsy result. Nathan took the chair beside her. Annie looked at the consultation room door. "Do you remember what I asked you?" "Every word." She turned toward him. "Can I trouble you for a few more years?" Nathan smiled. "Annie, those few hours you asked for were the most important appointment of my life." She slipped her arm through his as they stood. Outside the hospital, volunteers were setting up another donor registration event. Folding tables lined the covered entrance. Retired teachers, union workers, nurses, church members, and college students waited to register or ask questions. Annie paused near the first table. A sign carried the sentence she had chosen during treatment. "Someone you may never meet is waiting for a decision only you can make." Nathan looked at the line of ordinary people offering a small part of their time to strangers. Money could bring specialists across an ocean. It could pay for equipment, medicine, and a room with better windows. It could not order another morning to arrive. But time freely given could keep fear from becoming loneliness. Truth spoken at personal cost could open doors that power had kept closed. A person who remained could remind someone in pain that her life was more than a diagnosis. Annie adjusted the backpack on her shoulder. The Howard letter rested inside with Denise's photograph and the card her classmate had written during the worst week of treatment. "You'll miss the flight," Nathan said. "You're the one who taught me some meetings can wait. Not airplanes." She laughed and walked toward the waiting car. Nathan followed her through the hospital doors, no longer as a billionaire managing a promise, but as the man Annie had trusted to stay. Behind them, the hallway chairs were empty. His phone remained silent. The story reminds us that money can provide treatment, influence, and opportunity, but it cannot replace compassion, courage, or human presence. Real kindness begins when we stop seeing people as numbers, problems, or burdens, and choose to stand beside them in their darkest moments. It also shows that justice requires more than helping one person. It requires the courage to expose unfair systems, accept responsibility, and protect those whose voices are often ignored. Sometimes, a few hours of sincere attention can change the direction of an entire life. This video is a work of fiction created with the assistance of artificial intelligence. All characters, events, and situations are not real and do not represent any actual people or true stories. The content is intended for storytelling and emotional illustration only.